This is Big D and Shade for Takayaki Anime.
Yo!
And welcome back to Monthly Ketchup. We are back to talk about our final thoughts on the spring season of 2018.
It's kind of a mess season.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing like horrible, but nothing great.
Yeah, this is I'm not really sure. There's like some shows that I'm like really excited for.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's other shows where I'm like, eh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of looking through like what I wanted to finish, and not a lot of shows from this season like caught my attention. So
Definitely.
it's kind of weird. Like this was supposed to be the crazy season, I think, or was that last season?
I think that was last season.
Okay.
I want to say.
Okay. Cool.
I could be wrong, but
So, hello, mouse. Welcome to the other monitor. Let's get things started. The first show that we're going to be talking about is Black Clover.
yes. This is just what they're at episode 38 right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's 38, and it's just it's your typical shonen. I mean, it really is. It's the coming of age, growing up, have a huge goal in mind, gonna be the next Wizard King, and the trials and tribulations that involve it. I mean, that's basically what we're looking at here. Let's see what happened in the last couple of episodes. We've gotten our first our peek at the, I guess, main antagonist and the group that they're going to have, and we're learning more and more about the individuals that are in the Black Bulls group.
Mm-hmm.
Each of them has an interesting past. Like, one was at one point an aristocrat, and then pretty much their parents got killed and they got kicked out, and then the brother became obsessed with protecting the sister, who then became like a huge sister complex kind of thing, and that kind of goes into his personality. And then you have another kid who's like fierce fighting, wants to kill and just beat up everything that he comes across, but wants to do it all like by himself, not really much of a team player and everything. And then he learns how to kind of be a little bit more of a team player, and then we're learning more about the captains and actually seeing their abilities and their fighting styles. Apparently the leader of the Black Bulls, the captain, is actually a foreigner to the land. And I guess you could say he's kind of from Japan, I guess, because his style, well, he uses a katana. And nobody else that I've seen so far has that. And he uses shadow magic.
Okay.
So he'll imbue his weapon with shadow and be able to cut through things you normally wouldn't be able to, and uses it as a shield. And he also talks about ki, because he can actually sense when people moving like at superhuman speeds, he can still tell where they are, where an attack is coming from by judging the ki that they give off when they're doing something.
Okay.
So
when you mention shadow magic, is that the same magic as what what's his name has, or is that like demon?
No.
Okay.
They're alluding more to Asta's magic, and apparently the main antagonist that we've come across so far says that the book that Asta has is actually belongs to his master, and he keeps trying to get it away from him.
Okay.
But everyone agrees, everything he does, the only classification they've given him is anti-magic.
Okay.
So he'll literally break there was two of the enemy that they ended up capturing, and they couldn't, like, they were trying to view their memories so they can get more information, but they had a spell over their minds that were keeping them from being able to do that. And all Asta had to do was is actually walk in and hit their foreheads with the back of his hilt, and it dissipated the magic.
Okay, that's cool.
So, like, literally, he's we're in a world full of magic. He's probably the strongest of them all, just because he can actually nullify anything as long as he can touch it. So, but so it's just I guess we're still trotting along. We're gaining more information. We're finding out who the bad guys are. We're finding out more about the backgrounds of the good guys and who we're rooting for and what their stories are and how they're all commingling, existing, and they're and then there's, because it's a shonen, they're throwing in those love interest stories of, okay, this person likes this person and this person likes this person and this person over here likes this person. You're just like, oh my god, stop.
So,
I just no, stop it.
does Asta have eyes for someone else now, or is it still the nurse?
It's still the not the nun.
sister.
Yeah, the sister.
The sister, yeah.
Though there are now 2 people, actually 3, that have eyes for him. And he's not really coming out. They're not really asking him the appropriate questions in order to actually get that. He doesn't hide the fact that he is still after the sister.
Uh-huh.
But he keeps saying that there's somebody who's his main. Oh, I will always love, and yada yada yada, and everyone else keeps thinking it's somebody else. Because they already see the other people as rivals, so every time they keep looking at it, they're like, somebody else, somebody else, somebody else, and no one knows, except for Asta, that it's the sister.
Okay.
So it's kind of one of those funny moment kind of things. But again, yeah, I mean, it's just more about the background, more about, it was cool seeing the actual captains fight, because they're on a whole different level, and to see how they're actual utilize their magic. And then at some point, I think it was between the last time we talked about it and this time, we actually got to see a chance of seeing the Wizard King fight, which that was cool. He's definitely, there's a reason why he is the Wizard King. So, but yeah, again, I don't know. It's not. I'm not downing the show. I think I mentioned this, I'm not downing the show, but it's not necessarily wowing me.
Uh-huh.
I'm not like, in comparison between this and My Hero, like, I am always gung ho and just like, hell yeah, My Hero. I'm gonna watch it. It's gonna be awesome. I don't even care if it's a filler episode. It's still gonna be awesome, which is great. And then for this, I'm just like, there was something important going on. I'm like, I'll get to it eventually. You're just like, oh, I'll still watch it. I'm just not like, hell yeah, Black Clover, So
yeah,
it's interesting. It keeps my attention, but it's nothing. I don't know. Maybe I mean, we're already at episode 38, so I don't know. Maybe by the time we reach episode 50, I might be like, heck yeah, Black Clover. I don't know. I foresee this going on for a long time. This is going to be one of those shows that's going to go the distance, I think.
Okay.
Just because of how they're setting things up and how they're explaining everybody's backstory and explaining all the different things that are going on. I mean, you're really getting a sense of the world, but at the same time, I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is going to be like, at least fairy tale, I think, level, where it's going to be probably a couple different seasons, couple hundred episodes, and it's just going to keep going. So
I guess I should get in while while the episode count is low.
Yeah, if you intend on getting into this one, do it now, because it's going to be a good long while.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still on the first episode, so we shall
Got a
see.
ways to go.
Yeah. Alright, well, the next show we're going to be talking about is My Hero Academia 3. Boku no Hero Academia.
Heck yes. This series, I mean, I know we've said it every single time we've talked about it, but good lord, if you haven't started watching this series, watch this series. It is just awesome on every level. I mean, to me, it's got good action, it's got emotional hooks, it has good, decent comedy. I mean, it hits on all levels, I think.
Yeah, I really, really, really like this show. I love all the characters. I love how like all the situations that come about. I'm kind of glad that like the last episode was kind of like a just a happy send off to everybody. Before they either jump into the next one next week, or if they're gonna stop it here and come back in like a year or so.
I think it's gonna keep. I think it's gonna keep going.
Okay, so just like the second season has 2 cores, this one's gonna be 2 cores also.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I don't really have a lot of things to say about it that aren't really just spoiler heavy. And because we're halfway through the 2 cores, I don't really want to spoil a lot. I do know that I like how they have the dorms now, because like they said, they're trying to find out why certain things keep happening, and that's cool. I would love to find out who it is. Hopefully it's not somebody who are like, no, not you, how could you, because that would be terrible, but that'd also be awesome because they don't.
I mean,
yeah.
Even with a filler episode like this kind of was, with the whole dorm situation and all that, this last episode, I still feel like it was cool just because you have more. It either reinforced or gave you more of an insight into certain characters. When you actually see like their style and their room, and when they were doing that, I absolutely loved that. Just because you get to see some of your favorite characters, like some of them you didn't expect, some of them you're like, oh yeah, no, absolutely, like Mr. Sparkles, or like, yep,
oh
no,
God.
there is no way, no one in here who ever watched this series did not expect to walk into that room and be like, that's bright. That is like shining bright. How do you even sleep in this room? Holy crap. But then there's certain ones that you're like, okay, that's cool. And it wouldn't stop that, the multi-arm limb dude where he's a minimalist.
Yeah.
He literally only had a table and his bed. That was it. That's all he had. And I was like, oh. Because even Tokuyami was just like, I didn't think you were a minimalist. And he's like, oh, well, I just don't see the need to have a lot of things. I'm like, okay, cool. I wouldn't have thought that of him. I would have thought it'd be like a little bit kind of a little out there, a little weird. But, at the same time, seeing that was like, oh, that's interesting. But yeah, no, the characters are amazing. Even the ones that are like superfluous, you still look at and you're just like, they're still funny. I still enjoy watching them. They don't do much, but I'm still rooting for them, or I'm still, in there with them and all that. But if you mentioned that, if you watched the last one, I will have to say, that last part with 2, I was that kind of, there's a little feel moment there. You're like, oh man, yeah, because you feel it. I mean,
yes.
But see, that's the thing. They've made their characters up to a point like you actually have a connection. They did characters the right way because you actually have a connection. I've always, since the first couple episodes that had her in it, I've always loved Sue's character. I think she's a fun character. She's very supportive and smart, and can actually do what needs to be done. And the fact that she broke down like that, I was like, man, that hits right in the feels on that one. I'm like, come on, really? All right. And then everyone joined in, and I'm like, all right, okay, so it's, I don't know, it's good. It's good storytelling. It's good characterization. Even though you're seeing the powers over and over and over again, they still manage to do things differently every now and then. You're looking at going, all right, cool,
Do we need to have an introduction of everybody's powers in every single episode?
But see, all they do is they say it up to at the top. It's not like they're like, because like whenever they introduce somebody's powers, like say for instance like Stain, when they introduced his powers, they have the announcer voiceover who go Stain, and then you say his quirk and his powers. But that's all they do. I think they do that simply because they believe there are so many of them, and so many different types, that if they don't have somebody on air for a while, they're like, all right, we probably need to at least give them a reminder. All right, here's your quick, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that.
And it's like cinematic wise, like there's some other shows that are airing this season, and it's very very cinematic where you don't really like at some episodes they're like, this is gonna be a dramatic episode. We're not gonna run the intro. We're not gonna run the outro. We're gonna put the credits over the show and like slowly introduce the episode and then slowly fade away from the episode. So like that kind of stuff is just breathtaking because it's not really a lot of, you don't really see it all the time. And it's like, because this is a shonen, because it's such a big show, and I'm pretty sure new people are coming to the show all the time, I can see why they're like, oh, well, if you're new and you don't know yet, this person has this kind of power. So I'm like, it's just one of the things where it's like, it kept, at the beginning of the episode, I'm like, oh yeah, this is time for them to like explain everybody's power. And then on the last episode, they're like, oh, everybody's here. So we're going to do that for like the next 3 minutes. So I'm like, I get it. I get it, but it keeps popping up and I'm like, ah.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
No, I get you. I mean, you're just like, hey, I know these people. I've been with these people now for, what, 50 episodes now. I get it. I know what they do. I know what they can do. But I mean, that part I don't necessarily mind. And like I said, even though they're the same, they're very stagnant in their quirks, because that's all they have. That's what they use. That's what they do. I still like the fact that you see it in different ways sometimes, like with Bakugo, where he was having that during the tournament. You always know, okay, he can do massive explosions and stuff like that. But when he was facing Shadow Dude in that, the fact that he made a flashbang, essentially, I was like, oh, okay, I can see that. That's still an explosion. You just minimized the amount of impact force that it had and focused more on the actual flash part from the okay, yeah, no, absolutely. And then his fight with the half and half for ice and fire, where he used his own body as basically a projectile and made himself into a howitzer cannon with the explosion. I'm like, that's all right, yeah, okay, cool. And of course we have the main character who's constantly adapting and constantly changing, learning how to actually use the power that he was gifted and all that. And he's of course getting better with it, and you can actually see more things with it, which I'm cool with that. I'm like, all right, cool. And they even explained how during his fight with Muscle Dude, how he overextended himself, and there was a reason for that. There's a reason how he did that, how he was managing to able to actually do that, and it actually made sense. When they explained it, I'm like, I get that. That's like the whole incident where a mom's trying to save a child from under a car or something like that, so they can actually lift. They overextend themselves, but that's because your limited your own mental and physical limiters get shut down temporarily, which is what happened to him. But at the same time, now, like that last episode, especially towards the end, you notice like his arm, when it showed it briefly, but he had that like deep red scar on part of his arm from how his muscles got like torn and shredded, kind of thing. And I'm like, all right, yeah. So there was consequences, and they made sure to put that out there, that there was consequences to what he had done. Even though he did it to save someone, it was still that extended, and you went too far, and now your body's kind of paying for that a little bit, kind of thing. So I also like that, just because there is a limitation, because like you have, from the very beginning of the show, they introduced that the school nurse, and you think to yourself, you're like, man, that's OP. You can literally just beat yourself to ribbons, and she'll just heal you right back up, kind of thing. But there's a limit to that. So I'm like,
it's not that she has healing powers. She just knows how to manipulate your healing ability. Which is really really cool.
So I'm like, all right, yeah, absolutely, I get that. So that's what I'm saying. The dynamics that they do, even when they have somebody with a huge amount of power, or their quirk is just amazing, there's still a limitation to that. Just like with Tokiyami, when he was using his fire and ice, even in that during their arena thing, that he was saying it's a matter of stamina. You can't just keep using it.
Yeah.
There's a limitation to that, and it's literally, it takes a toll on your body, even if you're not, not like our main dude here who ends up beating himself up for most of the time when he's using his power. It's just the fact that your power is like, it's like cardio workout. You're gonna
Yeah.
wear yourself out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I like that. I like the way you gave everyone some superpowers, and then you're like, but there's a limitation to that.
Yeah.
They're strong, but there's a limitation to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think, like, and personally, like with All Might, I think that that's something done right.
Yeah.
That's amazing power with a limitation.
Yeah.
You know, we're not talking like Superman level here, because yeah, he has kryptonite. Okay, sure, but there's still, that's still not quite. Oh, well, if you don't have kryptonite, you're kind of screwed. No, he can do a whole bunch of amazing things, really powerful, but there's a limit to that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, that to me is superhero done right.
I kind of want to see All Might in his prime. Like see
Have a flashback.
Yeah, like see him be like from right before he gets the powers up until
He gets wounded.
yeah. Like I wanna see something like that. Like maybe like a spin-off series or something, because I think that would be really interesting.
No, it would be. I mean,
Like
obviously they have a lot of backstory with that.
yeah. Yeah, because like I don't know, it's like that villain, he like we hear a lot about him, but it's kind of like I want a Rogue One like a little thing, kind of like why he turned. They may have explained it already, but like why he turned the way he did, like how what's her name got hurt, and like
I mean,
also
I know you're trying to be very vague in certain points, but I'm just trying to make sure, when you're saying how he became like the way he did, are you talking about All for One? Or are you talking about the Hand Dude?
all for one.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and the hand dude too. That's like, where'd he get all them hands?
Because they're alluding to that. They're alluding to that, and I haven't read the manga, but I have a feeling I kind of know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, because I want to say that that hand that he had, like at one point when he got his hand knocked out, like the first time it ever happened, he freaked out and said, "Father."
Yeah.
I want to say that is actually his dad's hand.
Yeah.
Literally his dad's hand. And I think All for One needled his way into it when he found out who he was in relation to All for One, and then basically made it to where something major happened to him.
Yeah.
I almost want to say Hand Dude doesn't know who his mother was, because remember he said that when the father died, see, I don't think when he's saying father for that hand, I don't think that's his legitimate father. I think because he said he went to an adoption, put him up for like an actual home.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think when he's saying father, those are the people who actually,
like his caretakers.
like, yeah, they're the ones who essentially adopted him, I guess you could look at it that way. And then something happened to that family, and the hero never showed up. So that's why he has such a problem with heroes, because in his life, the most traumatic and worst moment of it, a hero never showed up.
Yeah, I feel like they would get to that because
they've
really wants to
that.
Ah.
They've alluded to that. He's never going to listen to All Might. And I think Gran Torino understands that and knows that, which is why he cautioned him, saying, no, you are not going to go after him. You are going to stay in UA, and you're going to you're going to actually train, your predecessor to be able to do the things he needs to do, but you are not going after him. We will go after him. Because they understand, no matter what All Might says or what he does, if All Might were to try to confront him, he would not take the steps that he should take, and he would die.
Yeah.
So
another reason why this show is so good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there is so much going on here. So much behind the scenes, and I'm sure potentially the manga might reveal a little bit more. I think they're alluding to a lot of stuff in the actual anime series. But at the same time, I'm like, man, there is so much gonna happen, so much going on, and it's amping up. It's amping up each time. So I'm super excited to see. Like, I want them to get their provisional license one, so that way we can forego this whole legal issue every time villains attack, and they're like, you have to have permission to actually use your abilities
Yeah,
against. It's like, come on. I get it because you're kids and they're not necessarily licensed heroes, but come on, we got it. They're trying to defend themselves here. You got to do something.
that's one like aspect of like superhero stories that is starting to show up in a lot of different things. I think it's like one of the first places I remember it being, like superheroes having like problems being superheroes was Incredibles.
Yeah.
And then the second time I heard it was in Avengers.
Yep.
And then now it's showing up in My Hero Academia, and it's cool how they approach it in completely different ways.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, no matter what way, whether it was Incredibles, Avengers, or My Hero, even though they're all different in how they handle it and what they do, I still think each one of them is quite valid in their own approach.
Yeah.
So when you have a world that is, from the youngest age of what they say, like 6,
I think it was 4.
4. So from the youngest age of 4, you have a quirk that begins to develop, and that could be. I mean, can you imagine Bakugo as a 4-year-old? I mean, we've seen him as a young age, but when he was first starting to learn that, I mean, how many times do you think he blew up the house or something without
Well,
even meaning to, kind of thing? You know what I
well,
mean?
yeah. Well, some of his flashbacks, it was more like sparks.
Yeah.
So
I
I don't
see. I
think
don't
he
know.
was
I
like
mean,
doing anything. So maybe he was like 8, 10. But yeah,
still,
even
I
at that
mean,
age, like yeah,
if that's Bakugo, can you imagine some of these other people out there and some of their quirks and how they did things? I mean, there has to be a system in place to be able to handle that, to be able to go, okay, you can't do that up until you reach this point, up until you get a license and you're officially taught this is how you have to do it, kind of thing.
yeah,
So no, I'm totally like that. To me, it makes perfect sense. But then the other ones too makes perfect sense too, because the Avengers, those are people who originally, when they were younger, didn't like have, or they developed their powers later, and some of them are like not even powers, but they're just because they have the technology or they did something to be able to do something. You know what I mean? So it's like now they're like scared because there was never nothing in place, because that's not a common thing. It's a very limited thing.
yeah,
So it freaked people out. So I mean,
yeah. It's
the
not
way
like
the way they
everybody's
do
a
it, I get
superhero.
it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So no, I absolutely. I mean, if you're a fan of Avengers, hero movies, hero shows, stuff like that, and you're like me, you're a fan of like the underdog type stories. Watch this. This is an amazing show, and we're gonna have to. I know you mentioned it before, but we're gonna have a time where we just have a show just talking about everything that's happening in the show.
yeah. I kind of want to go like season by season because it's like each season, like every character's gone through like their different stages.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, I
we
mean,
do
I don't
like
even
a
care about that
multiple
because
part.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's a way we're alluding to a lot of things, and I'm like, I understand you don't want to do a whole bunch of spoilers and nothing, but I really want to talk about some of the important things that have happened in this series.
yeah,
Stuff dealing with All Might, stuff dealing with Bakugo, and because even though he is a violent tendency type aggressive person, they alluded to it in the beginning of it to where you're like, he's actually kind of smart. And now you're looking at it, even now you're like, okay, he's actually really smart.
yeah,
He really is freaking smart. And I like, after this last episode with him in the dorms, I like how his personality now is.
yeah,
So you're like, oh wow, he's calmed down a bit. That's back down just a bit, and now he's really shining through with how intelligent he is.
yeah,
And I will say that was absolutely hilarious, and was the fact that he could realize it and did what was needed when was it Ayame, the teacher, Eraserhead, said, he called out the people he called out, and then said, okay, now we need to go and actually act normal. And they're like, how do you do that after being told that we were going to potentially be expelled if this hadn't occurred, kind of thing? And then
Yeah.
what did he do? He grabbed the lightning kid and was like, come here, pull him around the corner, made him do a whole huge shock, and then comes down the corner like his whole brain dead looking.
Yeah.
Everyone just starts bursting out laughing. You're like, okay, yeah, all right. He recognized what needed to be done, did something so that way it lightened the mood, and he was like, okay,
Yeah.
So to me, his development at this point on a character level has just gone leaps and bounds, and it was absolutely hilarious seeing his mother too. By the way.
Oh my god! I was wondering who he got the power from. And then as soon as you see his mother, you're like, oh, it's her. Okay,
Yeah.
definitely.
Not only his power, but his whole persona and attitude.
Oh my god, it was amazing. It was perfect.
And then you have the father, who's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And you're like, I was like, I feel so sorry for him. That is not a household that's not a great household.
It's one of them things where it's like, I kind of want to know more about the father, because I'm like, he must be like, I don't know what, like super sweet, like just super thoughtful, like something. He just caught her eye, and I was like, good job.
See, now I'm wondering if her personality was different when they first met and then just changed after she had Bakugo. You know what I mean? Like he already kind of had that personality, and she just amped it up, kind of thing, and it changed her and changed him at the same time.
Or it's like she's like, I'm gonna have to amp it up to keep him under control.
just because, again, what we were saying before, here's a 4-year-old who can blow stuff up. Can you imagine the little things that happened where he'd be holding something and even unintentionally blew something up, and she'd be like, "What are you doing? Why did you don't do?" Smack him upside the head. Don't do that, kind of thing. And it kind of snowballed. I kind of feel like I think that could be a potential possibility. Okay. And now that the father's just sitting there going, I can't do anything about this. It's just the way it is. This is my life now. I mean, I love him dearly, but this is my life. This is what I have to do with. I try to mitigate the damage around everyone else. Like, I can totally see that.
As soon as they leave, and Baku's like, okay, now you can be the jars and everything. He's like, don't be doing all that kind of stuff. As soon as you close the door, she's like, okay.
Yeah.
And turns around.
Exactly.
Like, so let's have dinner.
Exactly. Because almost every time, like when she was talking with All Might and Eraserhead, she was normal. But it was when she talked with Bakugo that she all of a sudden would smack him upside the head or scream at him. So I'm like, that leads me to believe that she's probably like on her own, she's fine. When Bakugo's around, she has to be she wears pants in the family, and she has to keep him under control and has to be like, no, stop it. No blowing up the house. I can see that. But anyways, like, seem like things like that. I'm so seeing each, like, the parents of the kids and seeing how they relate and everything, and then seeing and recently Endeavor and his whole thing.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I totally get where he's coming from. I totally get. If he has struggled for so long to try to hit that #1 spot, and now it's essentially given to him by default.
Yeah.
Oh, when Tokiyami got home, and you heard that huge explosion, and his sister's like, he's been like that ever since he got back, and then you walk into the training room and like half of it's on fire and stuff like that. And I'm like, he's just like, not like this. And I'm like, you know what? I kind of get where he's coming from. I kind of see it. I could see where he would be that pissed off because of that. So, I don't know.
Man. We could go on for hours and hours about this show.
That's what I said.
So, yeah.
It's still going. I mean, it's still going strong. So,
yeah.
This is going to be one of those just like I was saying with Black Clover, it's gonna go the distance. This show is gonna go on for easily probably a couple hundred episodes, I'd see, depending upon
Mm-hmm.
how long the actual manga is. Because I'm
Yep.
sure, I mean,
And
that's
then
where they're getting all their source material. So
yep. And then after that, then there'll be like a 3-year time skip, and it'll be My Hero Academia Next Generations.
probably, probably. So yeah, it's awesome. It's amazing in so many ways, and I can't. Every week on Saturday, I can't wait to see the next episode. Can't wait to see. Okay, what are they doing now? What's happening now? Where are we at now? Who's gonna do what? What's gonna happen? What catastrophe is gonna befall them, and they're gonna have to come back from, kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, even after how many episodes, and because of the whole Bakugo incident, where what happened with him, we still saw new heroes.
Yeah.
Because like that paper dude, can't remember his name, the one who can like be as thin as like paper, because like he slid in under the other side of the door. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, okay. I think I
And
remember
then
that.
and then the portal dude, he ended up like making himself into like this like spear almost, and like pierced him in such a way that it knocked him out.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
See, when he came in, I'm like, dude, damn, you're freaking strong. All right, cool. You manage your power very well, and you use it in a versatile ways. Absolutely. So yeah, more and more, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is cool. I like this. So
Yes, everybody watch it. It is the best show out. One of the best shows out right now.
agreed.
All right. The next show we're going to be talking about is Darling in the Franxx.
I'm not. Is it finally ended, or are they still going?
It's on episode 23, which is
Okay.
a weird number. They had a recap episode at like 15
Uh-huh.
or something like that. And then they had a special episode at like 18, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, y'all having production issues? Like, are y'all throwing all these random DVD specials in the middle of this series?
I'll get you. I will up you on that when we get to another one.
So
I will up you on that.
so other than that, it could end in one more episode, because the latest episode, something weird happened, and I feel like they could end it right there, like right after that. But overall, like, how are you feeling about the show? Do you think you're gonna go finish it one day, or?
I don't know. I really don't. I don't know. I mean, the lewdness aside, I'm not a huge fan of the mechs.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, when it comes to that, like every other mech show that I've actually watched and actually continued and finished and enjoyed, I was a fan of the mechs.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my top favorite is Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the mechs. And that's because within, what was it, like, the second or third episode, you see one of the mechs go berserk, and I'm like, yes, that is cool. I like that. This, I don't know. They made them look too human at first. The fact that they have a face, a humanish face, and I'm like, that looks weird on a robot. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that, between the two of them, for the main characters, they went and, they can go ballistic, they can go off, and stuff can happen, which is why I even watched it up to the point I did. But I don't know. I feel like they're trying to combine, what was it? They're trying to combine, I feel like, Neon Genesis and, shoot, what was that one? It was, Razafon.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're trying to combine something similar to that. And, yeah, I don't know. It just seems weird to me. It really does.
So, because I have a lot of parallels with this show and other shows, and I kind of want to go like slightly into spoilers. So
go for it.
Okay. So
go for it.
This show reminds me of another show called From the New World.
Mm-hmm.
That show was a society where the adults were separated from, well, no, they weren't really separated from the kids, but there was like this type of, like, basically everybody had some kind of magical power, and they kind of brainwashed the kids to not use it until they passed through puberty, and then after puberty, they should be able to manage their powers. So basically, using any type of their powers while they were an adolescent or younger was forbidden.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had this kind of theme about sexuality where it's you're in your adolescence and you're testing things out and stuff like that. And then there was this whole thing about like giving birth and all that kind of stuff was like taboo,
Mm-hmm.
and until you're like a certain age, and then the adults were like hiding a bunch of information from them,
Okay.
and
Which I
some
kind of
things
feel like is happening here from what I
yeah,
see.
like it's very very similar types of stories. And then something slips through the crack, a few things break out, and like the whole story gets turned on its head, and it ends up becoming this like really really darkly overtoned adventure where you're trying to get back home, but home is not what it is, like what it used to be anymore, and then trying to basically like find your place in life.
Mm-hmm.
And this show is very very similar. But we had talked about before that the kids and adults, they don't live together. We're trying to find out where the adults are because you don't see them that much. All the kids want to be an adult, like they're the leader of or the group leader, like the council, like the council of the colony is referred to as Papa, even though there's like 4 or 5 members, and all the kids idolize Papa and they want to do good by Papa, and they will try their hardest so they can get, I guess, recognized and then like promoted to where they can become an adult.
Well, and see, there was that one part of that one episode when they were facing that when the two colonies connected, and they knew there was going to be trouble. They had that other team come in, and they had that conflict between the two. But one of them mentioned about growing up and becoming an adult, and the other team looked at them like they were aghast and just, what? What are you talking about? And then one of them mentioned they don't know. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
So you knew there was and the fact that they allowed them that one episode, at least up to that point that I watched, where they went to the beach for like some R&R,
Mm-hmm.
and then they ended up like walking through an actual town that looked like nothing looked wrong with it,
Mm-hmm.
and it really made you think. I'm like, why did they abandon these places? Why are we constantly moving around in these mobile cities kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, obviously you knew there was something else going on. There's more to it. There's a behind the scenes, and we're not getting all the information because all we're getting is the information that the kids are getting,
Yeah.
and we're still not getting all of it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, there was definitely an undertone of mystery involved with this since even the very beginning, I feel like.
Yeah. So yeah, there was always the mystery of that. Why are there Klaxors attacking all the time? Why do they have to fight all the time? It's I really like the way that they kind of slowly trickled in all of those questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then right at the end they start explaining everything, and you're like, oh, that's why it looks like that. This is why they keep everything away from the kids. This is also why they like do everything that they do, and this is why we're getting attacked all the time. Then then it gets weird, and then you're like, why are we in space now?
Because why not? I mean, I feel like in that sense, that's more of like the anime undertones, isn't it? Because that's just like the reasons why all of a sudden we'll be like, we're going to go to a hot springs. What? Why? Where was there? Excuse me? We were just having an epic battle sequence. Now you're like, hot springs time. What? So, no, I think that's just anime logic right there.
Yeah. So, it gets really really weird. the last episode leaves off, we're in space, then a portal opens up, and then the enemies are through the portal, and we're gonna bring this thing over there and defeat them all, and everybody will live happily ever after, kind of. Yeah, because it's like they have a plan to go somewhere after the fight, but that place is still like okay. So, I would say overall, it's a very, very interesting story. I like the format of this. There's been, so, off the top of my head right now, I want to say there's 3 shows that have approached it, like they have the same kind of structure, and 2 that I can come up off the top of my head. And one is this show, another one is From a New World. If you like From a New World, and if you've seen it, then this show has a similar format, and it's not as dark. There are some dark parts, but it's not as dark, and I feel like it's a more fun version of that story. If you haven't seen that one, if you watch this and you want something else similar to that, then watch it From a New World, and that's a more darker toned. Everything's based on, and like it's on Earth, like in like the forests and grasslands and stuff like that, and some of it takes place underground, and it's a very, very interesting show. But now I kind of want to go into spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, and if you haven't and you want to know, like you want to watch it for yourself, then
mute the stream.
Yeah, I'm gonna do like the Co-optional Podcast does, and I'm gonna do spoiler finger. So as long as I hold my finger up, mute the stream if you're watching it live, or skip ahead in the YouTube video to the next time code whenever I put it in. And for the audio podcast, I don't
know. You're just screwed.
But so the whole like basically it is Earth. It takes place like 2050.
I could see that because like the town that they went through looked something very similar to like a Japanese town, I would say.
Yeah. So it's not too distant future. What happens is we find something inside of the planet that we can actually use as an energy source, and we start harvesting it. It basically revolutionizes the entire world, and it's called magma energy. You've probably heard it, them talking about magma energy in the show. Just like how oil is like fossilized dinosaurs, or like it comes from the it comes from dinosaurs. It's like like organic material and all that kind of stuff underground. The same thing happens. There was this race called Klaxo sapiens or something like that, which is basically like half dinosaur, half human, but like before they turned into the Klaxors.
Okay.
And that's where that energy is coming from. What happened was both species ended up doing the same thing twice. It was silly, because like I guess the Klaxo sapiens and the Homo sapiens both followed the same path for their history. Like the Homo sapiens, they found the magma energy. They started using that, and then they're like, you know what? Right now, people are always looking for looking for a way to be immortal. So some scientists, they're like, maybe we can use this magma energy to do that. And you know what? It worked. The only problem is by becoming immortal, you lose your ability to reproduce. So what they ended up doing is like the whole Homo sapien race slowly started converting over, and then everybody started living forever. A lot of the buildings that you see in major cities started switching over to be run by magma energy, and you can tell because it's like a solid black building with like these like Tron orange features, which is the magma energy. So basically all the adults become infertile and can no longer reproduce. Then while mining all of that stuff, the Klaxors start popping up. The Klaxors are basically just like how the Frank suits have to have a male and female to pilot it. The Klaxors are the same thing. That's just basically the Klaxo sapiens version of a Franks.
Okay.
The cores that they were talking about getting from the monsters, that's the male component. and then the female component is the rest of it. The bigger and bigger Klaxors are basically smaller Klaxors combining and fusing together to become a bigger one. So when you see one that's like super duper gigantic, that's hundreds and thousands of couples fusing all together to create that thing. And it's weird because the Klaxosapiens ended up doing something to where they became infertile too. So then they started making the Klaxors to fight the people who were taking the magma energy from it. The Klaxosapiens are basically extinct except for the queen, and she's been waiting underground for hundreds and like millions of years because she's fighting aliens.
And here's where the story begins to take a WTF moment.
Yeah, this is where the story goes straight up anime. There's aliens like sitting up in Earth waiting to attack. I don't know what they're waiting for. Oh, I think they're because so like how the Klaxosapiens could merge the Klaxors to create this giant creature. One of our scientists were merging the Franks together to create this giant Franks. And the process was kind of already started by the Klaxosapiens, and that main doctor, he took it over and turned it into a Franks. He was going to use that to fight against the Klaxor. Mm-hmm. The plan got messed up. The queen took that over and started using that to fight against the aliens. Then all of a sudden it becomes a space race. Everybody starts fighting the aliens, and there's this huge battle that's kind of weird because it's like a bunch of stuff floating in space and going pew 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 and all that kind of stuff. And then you have this giant Franks, which it gets like super duper weird, and like the main girl, the demon girl, she like. The main guy gets trapped inside of it, and then she goes after him to get it, but then she gets trapped inside of it, and then he's not, and then him and all of the other 13 crew plus the nines, they all head out into space to fight they all started going into space to fight those, and they almost win, but they can't. So this portal opens up, and they're like, oh, we're going to take this mothership that has a bomb in it and take it to the bad guys. And I'm assuming that it's it gets super duper weird. So basically the whole thing started because we found this substance, and we started using it, and that woke up the Klaxors, and we started fighting them, and then we found out that they were actually fighting aliens. So then we all team up and fight the aliens.
Wow.
The nines are clones of the main girl, and she is a clone of the Klaxor queen.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not.
It gets interesting, and then it turns into aliens and turns freaking anime weird.
Yeah. See, to me, like, I don't know. Once upon a time, when I first started watching anime, I could have been like all into that and been like, that is weird, but you know what? I'm gonna go with it. Yeah, let's do it. Mm-hmm. Now I'm just like, can I have like some sort of cognitive reason as to why? Is there a why here somewhere? Even a how? I'd go with a how. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't even know what else to say. All I know is like it turns super weird. But
I think that's all you need to say.
Yeah, and like the From a New World kind of turned weird at the end too. It's like it's like that story format. It So no more spoilers. I'm done. I don't even know how to explain more. But yeah,
that's just
It's super duper great, and then it takes a very weird turn, and then it's gonna have like a cliche anime ending. And
do you think it's just because maybe they ran out of funding for it or something?
Well, no, I think that was like the full story. I just don't know where aliens came from. Like, it was great up until then. Like, if the battle would have ended before it turned to that, then it would have been cool. Like, they would have fought the main bad and then realized that, oh, we're the same, and then we would have lived life like that. But no, they wanted to turn weird. But yeah. That's all I got for that one. I'm gonna watch the last episode to see her like smash a bomb into the bad guy and then it'd be done. So,
Gotcha.
Let's see. Hey, Schmuckman, welcome to the stream. We will be switching to the next show just now. The next show we're gonna be talking about is Full Metal Panic: Invisible Victory.
I'm just a whole lot of on this. I really am.
I really wanted to catch up, but I'm like, that's like
okay.
A lot of
like
episodes.
Literally. All right, we're on episode 10, right? Right. This is that's as far as it's come through right now.
Okay.
Episode 10. In 10 episodes, we have had 2 episodes of recap.
Mm-hmm.
In 10 episodes. Are you serious? Episode, what was it? Episode 4 was a recap of the first 3 episodes. And then they had an episode 8.5. So I guess technically we have 11 episodes. But literally their episode 4 was just a... Well, no, I take that back. So they had 4 episodes, then a recap. Another 4 episodes, then a recap. I'm like, really? I mean, I could see if you're having like a show that's like Black Clover or My Hero Academia, where you're like, sure, we've had 25, 30 episodes. Let's do a recap. So that way you're still fresh in your memory about what's happening, what's going on. We can tell you all this. But 4 episodes? Really?
Yeah.
Every 4 episodes? You're going to do that? Seriously? Why? Why are you going to do that? It boggles my mind. It really does. I don't get it. But beyond that, if I were, I've watched all the 3 previous 4s for this. Mm-hmm. So Full Metal Panic Fumofu, and Full Metal Panic Second Raid, right? Full Metal Panic Fumofu was just fun. Just straight up, it was fun. There was really no like overt point to it, but it was fun. The first one and the second raid were very much like action-packed. Let's throw in some comedy, and towards the end of both of them, I feel like they got a little dark, but not like substantial. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This one, I feel like because this is a different creator. This is a different studio that did this, that took control of this. I feel like they took that idea and concept that the previous one had about, okay, towards the end we're gonna make it into a little darker, and you being to see things kind of form in that. They're like, you know what? We're gonna do that for the whole thing. We're just gonna be like, whole thing, just dark, just heavy, just wrong in all sorts of ways. Because so for the first, I'll do it by their standards. By the first 4 episodes. First episode, they're already being attacked. They're being attacked by the main people, Algarium or something like that. That organization has decided that they're going to take Chidori away simply because she knows she's brilliant. Essentially, the way that she can manipulate the mechs, and a lot of things going on with that. Won't get into much of that. But so within the first episode, already her friend gets kidnapped, strapped to a bomb, and threatened to get killed simply because she is. And I think it's first or second, either way. But anyway, the first 2 episodes, that's kind of what happens there. A random civilian gets caught in a crossfire and gets like a giant piece of shrapnel through their leg as they're trying to run away from these things. Chidori freaks out because Sasuke basically guns down a whole bunch of people who were trying to gun them down, essentially. And meanwhile, back at base, their base is getting annihilated, and they're trying to do everything they can just to survive. The freaking captain decides that she's going, like, one person says, well, we just hand her over, they'll leave us alone. And she basically threatens to kill him if he doesn't follow orders, going so far as to get a gun from her subordinate and point it at the guy's head and say, are you really willing to do this? Because I'm about to shoot you in the head if you say yes, kind of thing. And you're like, holy shit. All right, sure, And then the robot that Sasuke ends up using from the first one and the second raid gets pretty much annihilated within the first 4 episodes, and Chidori gets kidnapped. I'm like, all right, sure. And then for the next 4 episodes, Sasuke is trying to find out where Chidori went, having a hard time of that because his base of operations got destroyed, and everyone he knows is either dead or on the run. So he has a rumor that he hears about in some South American country, and he goes down there to try to investigate, and ends up becoming. There's a underground robot fighting league or something, and he ends up becoming a part of that. You're like that's one of those anime things. You're just like, well that just happened. All right, cool, sure. And then he makes friends with this girl who's like the main, I guess, the captain of this team or whatever, and he at one point ends up finding out that she's pretty much got the same gift that Chidori does. She's brilliant. She can program and all this other crap, like these complex things that no human should be able to do without like heavy assistance in a lot of ways, and she can do matter of factly kind of thing. And then she gets killed, you know. And then the person who kills her, Kurosasuke, gets all pissed off, goes after him, and in the matter of this their whole gun shootout fight that they have, Sasuke gets heavily wounded, but he manages to get some information from this guy before he kills him. So there's another person dead within, what, 9 episodes? I mean, we've had people either heavily wounded, his base of operations destroyed, people getting killed. Like, this is one of those ones, like, when I first met you and we were talking about anime, you always had that instance where you're like, I don't like getting involved with characters because they're gonna die. He's like, you told me that. You're like, usually whoever's my favorite character in an anime is gonna die. And I almost want to look at you and go, don't watch this anime. just don't. Because guess what? They're probably gonna die. Yeah, it's dark, you know. And then Chidori is kidnapped. You see a little bit of her life after she's been kidnapped for a couple of months. Like, that's the time lapse in between when we're not watching her. This is what's happening. And she's depressed. I mean, like, you could see why, because, you know, she got taken from her home, and she's now concerned that even if she were to escape, that because of who she is and what happens around her, people she knows are going to get hurt, and she doesn't want that. So now she is like deeply depressed, and that just further drags the tone of the whole thing even further down. And it's just, and then you see the wear and tear on the captain of the sub of Sasuke's whole operation, because she's getting like haggard, and she's concerned about the fact that people are getting involved and trying to figure out what to do about her brother, who's been like the instigator of all of this. And it just, yeah. Again, I'm just looking at it going, if you were to compare all of these together, I mean, even if you were to leave out Fumofu, if you were just to watch them go first core, second raid, and then this one, it is completely different. The feel of it is different. The story is different. It's just, wow. Yeah. And then the way that they're doing this, it really concerns me. Like, I've enjoyed this series before from the previous iterations that they've had. Whoever did it first, I don't remember who. But now to see it like this, and then to see that they're doing like intermissions every 4 episodes at this point, I swear, I guarantee you, episode after episode 12, it's going to be 12.5, intermission 3. Really? Really? Because, no, just generally speaking, no. I don't know. I don't feel like they have a good direction that they're going in. It's almost like they wanted the license, they wanted the series, because I think the original ones who did this, they didn't know where they wanted to go with it, and now these guys have no clue at all where they want to go with it. They just took the license over, and they're just like, we're gonna run with it. I don't know what we're gonna do, but we're gonna run with it. And yeah, these are things that are gonna happen. Really? Why any of this? I don't know. Either way,
I don't know when I'm gonna get to this show.
I don't know, man. It's just, and then what was it? I think this was last episode I watched. He was recovering from his wounds, Sasuke was, and he ends up calling on a favor from an old army buddy and from the States, and they go and then they're down at like a secret boot camp down in Florida or something like that. And Sasuke is pushing himself, and one of his friends looks at him, or someone he had met along the way through episode 6 through 8 or something like that, or whatnot, 5 through 8, looks at him and goes, "He needs to rest. He is not fully recovered yet. He's beating himself up. He needs to rest." And this guy starts going in about, I don't know. It was ridiculous and funny at the same time, because I see this as what the creators, the studio, views American army people as. Because they bleeped out a lot. Let's put it that way. They're like, he's got fucking guts. He's got fucking guts. And he's like, so he has guts? No, he has fucking guts. I'm like, dude, seriously? You're purposely throwing in that adjective, just throwing it right in there and making sure to emphasize that point. I'm like, oh my god, that's ridiculous. It's like, yeah, I know army people can curse, everyone can curse, but they made it an absolute like point to point that out and rub it in. I'm like, come on. I almost feel like it's that same way with what was that one that we saw that was back when Cyborg and we were watching anime. That one that had the American in it that we all said was just awful. We're like, don't watch this. Taboo Tattoo.
Yeah.
Taboo Tattoo. I felt the same. I want to know if the guys who did Taboo Tattoo did this, because I guarantee you it is almost the same as far as like the way they portray Americans in that regards. I'm like, wow, holy crap, it was weird. So yeah, hold on, I gotta see that.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
Oh god, no, I just googled Taboo Tattoo and there it came up with season 2. No. No, don't do it.
No, it's
okay,
different.
so apparently it was done by JC Staff.
Yeah, and the other one was done by Zivik.
Okay, so it's different studios?
Yep.
Okay. Now that's kind of sad. I almost feel like that's just how a lot of Japanese culture views American culture in that regards. Because if that's the way they're saying it, just seems, I'm like, come on, really? So, either way, it has cliche moments. It has a very dark story, more so dark than I feel like it needs to be, and way darker than the series ever was to begin with. And it's heavy. It's not very comical. It's very much just like, I don't know. It feels like they threw stuff in together. I don't feel like anything was planned. I don't feel like they have a direction on this. So I'm kind of miffed at it, honestly. So, anyways.
Yeah.
If anyone out there is watching this and has not started watching Full Metal Panic: Invisible Victory and is a fan of the Full Metal Panic series, I'd almost say give this one a pass. I really would, because I think in a lot of ways, it has some similarities, but I think the only similarities is just dealing with the actual characters themselves. So, I don't know.
Well, that's sad to hear.
A little bit, really. Anyone out there who's watched it, though, if you've watched all the rest of the series, let me know what you think. Because I'm rather torn on this one. I'm a little miffed at it. I'm a little disgusted with it, just with the way that they're treating everything and doing everything. I don't know. Because like in the beginning, the other two series, there was a definitive line. You know what I mean? There was a definitive line of like, this is Sasuke's and Chidori's school life, and this is Sasuke when he's at work.
I was gonna bring that up because that's the part that I know.
You know, but now they've completely given up on the school life, and they're just completely focused in on the work aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just said, you know what? It was mediocrely dark beforehand. Let's just go all the way. Let's just amp that crap up and just really drive home, make it seem as real as possible. And I'm like, okay, now you're going too far, kind of thing. So.
Yeah. I'll probably end up going back to it when I do my backlog series, but for now, I'm a pass. Alright, the next show we're going to be talking about is Grand Crest Sinky, or Record of Grand Crest War.
Yes. So I don't know. This one, that's why I said, like, this whole season is just a bunch of just meh anime. It really is. The highlight of this whole season has been My Hero Academia, I feel like. That has been the highlight of this whole season for me. Because, all right, so at this point, it's done. Grand Crest is done. It's over.
How many episodes is it?
24. It had a decent amount. Longer than most, honestly.
So it was just this season and last season?
Yeah.
Oh.
They just followed right. Because they didn't stop. They followed right along through with it.
Okay.
You know. So, I don't even. All right. So.
Did the White Walker show up?
No.
Ah.
No, but okay. The way you were talking about Frank's and saying like we're getting that stereotypical anime ending. That's how we did this. That's exactly how we did this.
Uh-huh.
And so, okay. They had a really, and I was really interested in it. They had a really cool beginning part. Like, it was, okay, the beginning was kind of meh, but then they really amped it up.
Mm-hmm.
They amped it up midway through the series, and I'm like, all right, this is cool. I get this. This is awesome. So the beginning of the series had our main character who ends up becoming a noble, got his own crest, which they never explained how. They just said he got his own crest. Go figure. And became his own noble, wandering noble. Meets up with this mage, blonde-haired chick in the white suit most thing. And I guess for most part, mages became attendants to nobles. And she was supposed to become an attendant to a noble that she didn't necessarily care for and thought he was more of a womanizer. That's who she was supposed to be going to. But she meets up with him along the way and then ends up contracting with him. So that's how that ended up going, right? Now, she has some great friends. Great friends. What is it? So the dude in the picture in the background, the white hair and the black kind of hair in the back of it, or whatever, he is like a very, what do they call him? There's a class that they call him, but he's like super powerful. He uses what's in this world as chaos in order to power himself up. Same thing with the purple-haired girl next to him. Also uses chaos in order to power herself up. And she can do great things, like freaking, she was taking out like part of an army by herself and laughing the entire time. I loved her character as far as that goes. So I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. And the fact that there was one kid in the opposing army that actually kind of kept pace with her for a little bit, she was actually really happy about. She was like, I want to be with you. You're great. And I'm just like, oh, that's just funny, you know. I'm laughing the entire time. This is great. Um, but there really wasn't a huge direction as far as it goes until later on when you realize that the main king of supposed to be this entire land, who was supposed to get with this queen of a different land in order to unite the lands and potentially unite the crests, which is what everyone's goal is to unite the crests. Because if they unite the crests, then they can potentially get rid of the chaos. And that's what they want. The chaos is there. It's like a Malaysia around the whole land. It's poisonous. It produces monsters. There are literally towns that cannot be populated by humans anymore because all it is it has like this gas around it and monsters constantly are in it, kind of thing. So people wanted to get rid of it. But you figure that there's this demonic force that's trying to stop that, right? Because there was at one point, I remember telling you before, during this royal wedding that was supposed to unite the lands,
Yeah.
this giant demon comes out of nowhere and just utterly annihilates the two main kings from the different lands that were supposed to combine together. And then that's the reason why the wedding got called off and things further went into chaos. So the noble, the wandering noble, the main character that we're with, wants to get rid of the chaos basically for his own land. I mean, he's like, I want to get rid of the chaos, period, but mainly for my own land, where my village is and my people are, and I just to be able to get it done. Well, he kind of gets sucked into this whole war going on between that queen and that king that never got married together, and for whatever reason, they decided they hated each other, and then later on, you secretly go in and you're like, no, they don't hate each other. There's a misunderstanding between the two. They actually love each other still, and they still want to get married, still unite. But a bunch of things got in the way. So eventually that gets solved, and you think, oh, great. Now we can have the marriage. Now they can unite. Now that can happen. But then we end up finding out that the Mage Guild was actually been the one responsible for summoning that demon, who everyone just thought the demon had appeared. But no, the Mage Guild had actually said, no, we can't have that happen. And they stopped the wedding. So then, now all the focus goes into the Mage Guild. Now everyone's like, they're the enemy, we have to take them out. Right?
Uh-huh.
So, great. So, but still, the main character's like, I want to know why. Why is it that they're not wanting to get rid of the chaos? Why is it that they're, this is happening? Yada, 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 yada. So, he ends up, okay, and it was really funny, too, because they decided towards the second to last episode, they're like, you know what? We haven't had any major battles happen in a long time. No major conflicts. We've actually been kind of toning that down. So let's have the Mage Guild bring out a giant troll. Or Cyclops. Giant Cyclops. Now they have to deal with that. Which they do, but it's just like, what was the point in that? Where was the... We just decided that was just going to be a thing? Just send out the Cyclops! Alright, send out the Cyclops. Here we go. What the hell? And then, so they finally get into the actual Mage Guild, their home, city, town, whatever. And you end up finding out that there is this mechanism that apparently got left behind by a previous society, kind of like Frank's previous society left behind this mechanism. And apparently, here's the kicker, which is kind of why I laughed with you about Frank's thing. Apparently, guess what they found? An energy. They're like, hey, we found this energy. And apparently, their whole thing is that when they were dealing with this energy, had they actually continued dealing with the energy, it would have brought about the end of the world. Because it was bad, and it would have created the ultimate weapon essentially,
Uh-huh.
and no one was mentally or morally prepared to handle something like that. So in response, this other part, which ended up then turning into the Mage Guild, brought about the chaos. They brought about the chaos, so that way the people would become disbanded, and no one would have any way of being able to handle the energy that they had found. So
So,
for the Mage Guild, not getting rid of the chaos was the only way to continue humanity, is what they say. Because if we get rid of the chaos, eventually we're going to find the energy again. We're going to build up our civilization to where it's futuristic and everything, and then we'll get a hold of that energy and eventually create the weapon of mass destruction, and everyone's going to die. And basically, the main character hears this, sees this, because he touches the mechanism and kind of gets transported. It's kind of a mental thing where he gets transported and sees all this stuff. Comes back, looks at the main headmaster, talks with him about this, and goes, I don't care. I don't care. We're getting rid of the chaos. We will figure this out when we get to it. And then the headmaster poisons himself, dies, and then we wrap it all up saying, all right, he combined all the crust, got rid of the chaos, and he went back to his homeland, and that's it. like I said, I'm just like, okay, we were going at a good pace. We had a lot of good things going. And then, like, the last, what, 4 episodes, you're just like, screw it, let's just wrap it up. I'm like, what the hell happened? Why? Just in general respect, why? Why did we have to go the stereotypical anime ending part? I don't get it. What happened? Why did we have to wrap it up in a nice little bow and just say, well, their reasons for doing that were stupid, and we're just gonna do whatever we want to do? You know? I was like, that makes no sense. And then just like nobody cared about it because they're like, oh, that's in the future. That's not gonna happen in our timeline, so why should we care? I'm like, shouldn't you be concerned about that? Shouldn't you have like a group of people to just go, we need to research that, put controls on that so that doesn't happen? No, they're just like, he goes back home, he starts his own life. He's married now to the mage, and we're good to go.
But the chaos is gone, so now we're happy.
Now everyone's happy. Yeah, exactly. Like, oh my god, I don't. Why? Why did we do that? Because it's anime, and they just decided they're just going to end it right there, and they just wanted to wrap it up in a nice, pretty little bow. That's what happened. So, yeah. In general, Grand Crest Wars. It's very meh. It has its high moments where you're like, this is cool, I like it, and then it just falls flat. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. God, why I don't know. Is it because of watching My Hero Academia has my standards just risen so high during this season?
Well, I guess, like, how would you have ended it?
Huh?
How would you have ended it? Because for me, I would have been like, well, they just. So normally, what happens is they're like, oh, these two big. This Group A and Group B, they're fighting. Well, to unite everybody, Group C will become the enemy and attack both. So then A and B combine, and the rest of the world is happy except for us. What they did was A and B were already gonna unite and be happy, but then in the future something bad was gonna happen. So they're like, no, don't be happy and keep fighting and killing yourselves. And that's it. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
You know, I don't know. I feel like they should have had more into it with okay, so they didn't introduce the Mage Guild as being enemy until episode 21.
Jesus.
So, 4 episodes. 4 episodes is what they had to work that with. Okay, so one, I think that's a little too sudden.
That sounds tacked
I think that's a little too sudden.
on.
Just saying. Two, if they had introduced this and then said, hey, there is this energy we do not want anyone to handle, because if you do it, you can create a weapon that will be capable of destroying all life on the planet. Okay. Where is it? What is it? You alluded to it. You didn't really give it a name. You just said it's an energy source that we find on the planet. I'm like, if it's on the planet, obviously it can't be bad. It's just the way that it's used, right?
let's
So
let's write some rules. Let's create some laws.
let's create some laws.
Let's create a group that takes care of this.
Exactly. Or hey, how about we actually go and find it and then see if it's really that bad? And if it's not, then let's just go, hey, let's just do what we got to do for now. Let's work with it, but let's make sure we're working it with it in a safe manner. You know, it's just, or you know what?
Or find it and bury it and guard
Yeah,
it.
go find the energy, and then destroy it. There, problem solved. Everyone can live a happy life. No one's gonna find the energy. You're pretty much gonna be stuck in this medievalish type era. Nothing's gonna get futuristic, but hey, everyone's still alive, and no one's gonna potentially die in the future. You know what I mean? Something. Give me something. Don't just go, I will figure it out in the future. It's all good. You know? I'm probably gonna be dead before they finally do anything with that. It's fine. You know, that's what I feel like. I feel like that's what they did. And I'm like, no. Or maybe have the crests that they finally combined all the crests into one. It's like, okay, maybe have some sort of effect on the energy or something. That way it has limited probabilities of being able to do, I don't know, something. Give me something. But no. You know, the very last scene is him back in his hometown picking grapes and then having a meal with the rest of his town and his followers at a table, and everyone's like, haha, it's so happy. And I'm like, really? Really? Are we seriously? I don't know. It weirded me out. It did. I feel like they dropped the ball. They said, you know what? We have no idea what we're doing with this anymore. We have no idea how we can end this. Screw it. Let's just have the happy Disney ending. And it irritated me. You had a good thing going up until episode 20. After episode 20, you slowly start to drop the ball until you get to 24 and you just let it just fall. That's what I feel. So
Okay.
That's why I say this season had its high moments, and then a lot of them just ruined it. And I'm just looking at it going, really? Could have been great. Season could have been great, and then just so. Anyways.
Alright. So, yeah, I've only watched that one episode. As per usual. The next show we're going to be talking about is Hina Matsuri. Which Is
Oh, this one. Okay.
yeah.
I saw the name on your list and I was like, I know this one. I feel like I do. I didn't watch it, but I feel like I do.
So, um, I like this show. I really, really do. Um, the end of it was kind of like a sputtering out because I watched
Oh,
most
so
of it.
they pulled a Grand Crest then, is what you're saying.
Well, no, it's one of the things where it's more me than it is the show
Uh,
because the I watched.
it really does. Simply, it really does. I agree with that full heartedly.
Yep. So the let's see.
So
Um,
this is
yeah,
the
the way
one with,
yes,
with the girl that had just like that was
yeah, she has
attached to.
telekinesis, and
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
she like blackmailed this yakuza guy into staying with her.
Gotcha.
um, so well, not blackmail. She like threatened this guy by threatening to break all this stuff. Uh,
Which yeah, no, I remember that because I was like, well, just have her go away. How's she gonna break your stuff when she's not there with the stuff?
so basically, what I did is I watched the beginning, and then I watched most of it, finished the climax of the series, watched a bunch of other stuff, and then came back as the slow ending of the series.
Gotcha.
So my last impression on the show is kind of a laid back, like it was kind of silly, and then it ended. And the more I think about all the stuff that happened, it's a very very funny show to me. Um, Basically, there ends up being um, three girls that have the same like telekinesis power.
Uh-huh.
Um, One of them shows up at this rich yakuza guy's house. She ends up threatening to break his stuff, and basically anything that he she is so powerful that anything he tries to do, she can like mitigate it. So like he tries to put her in like a box or something or he gets a box, tries to put her in, she'll like float the box, throw it out the window or something. Like he just can't figure out a way to like get rid of her. So
Mm-hmm.
then he takes her in. He starts to get used to having her around, or basically get used to taking care of her.
Mm-hmm.
And um, she keeps messing things up. At one point, he kicks her out, and um, she ends up going to the park where she ends up meeting one of the other people from wherever she comes from. I don't know if it's another dimension. I don't know if it's another time, like
So
in
they
the
never
future.
explained that.
No, they haven't explained like where they actually came from. And they may have and said it in like a sentence, and I just missed that sentence. But um, basically, they just keep saying where I'm from. So um, she's from somewhere else, and four other people come from somewhere else and get involved in the story. Um, One of them is the girl that she meets at the park. That girl, she ends up uh, appearing near a yakuza or just a bike gang, and um, whenever they travel from where they are to our world, they come in this like metal egg thing,
Mm-hmm.
and once they get like you push the button, and like poof, like a Dragon Ball Z capsule, they
Mm-hmm.
just kind of poof into their normal form, and they don't have any clothes or anything. So she just
Oh, of
poofed
course.
near, yeah, they just poofed near this biker gang, and
Because
then
anyone coming from an alternate timeline or another dimension is always going to be naked. Just to let you guys know, if you ever get that, someone offers you, hey, I can send you to another timeline. Just be warned, you're gonna arrive there naked.
well, if you think about it, like with a lot of other shows where they do teleportation or time travel or something like that, your molecules get all mixed up and stuff like that. So it's like if you go with a shirt, your shirt might be fused to your body, or like or your hand
Hey,
will just be
hey,
cloth or something like that.
in anime, how often is it that they actually change clothes anyways?
Yeah.
They
So,
usually have the same outfit on almost all the time. So
hmm. But so I could see that because even like um, the Terminator, he like comes into the world, boom, naked. Um, so she ends up in front of this biker gang and like confronts the biker gang, basically beats them all up, takes one of their take bait. Coincidentally, she took the leader's clothes. So then she's like, okay, now I'm here, and I need to find Hina. She goes around looking for Hina, basically like going into stores, like stealing, like because I guess, but from where she comes from to where we are, she doesn't know you have to pay for stuff. So she's just like walking into a store, grabbing some stuff, and then leaving. And um, she ends up getting this reputation of this girl who's always shoplifting. So like the police are always after her, and it's like whenever I think of the police are always after her, I think of like a ton of police cars, like blah blah blah. But it's like in this anime, or maybe in Japan, I don't know. When the police are after her, it's like a couple of police officers. There's no cars or anything involved, and they're like chasing her through the city, and not in a very far distance. It's just like within a couple streets, like a little neighborhood, and people would call, be like, "Hey, officer, blah blah blah, she's here again." They're like, "Oh, I'll be there in a second," and he's like running after her. Come back! It's just like this very tame version of the police.
oh goodness me, no,
And
I
then
think that's pretty stereotypical as far as that goes
yeah,
when it comes to other countries and the police. So
okay, so yeah, um, so eventually she runs across this homeless guy, and he ends up teaching her the ways of being homeless, where you don't you don't steal, you don't do anything illegal. It's like you go around and find cans and recycle those cans and get a couple bucks, and then you spend those couple bucks on your food a day for the day, or you take those couple bucks and like pool it together with your other homeless colleagues. I don't know, and other homeless people, and then they all buy something bigger or something like that. So he's like basically like teaching her how to not be a criminal anymore, and she ends up really taking that in because she's like a young like middle aged school girl. Um, so by that time, that's when Hina gets kicked out, and she ends up actually Hina she came across Hina once and tried to fight her,
mhm.
and just got destroyed. So then she ran off and did the other stuff, and then they meet up again, and because she's like, oh well, since he didn't want to take care of me anymore, I'm gonna go find Hina. She goes to the park, finds Hina. Hina basically takes her in, and then she's just the exact same. She's not gonna change. She's like eating up all of Hina's food that she's like worked so hard to get. She's finally earning money to buy stuff, and then she's like complaining because there's no TV, and she spends like the whole day playing on her I guess is a D her handheld console, and she basically uses up the battery and then starts complaining because there's nothing to do. After a few days, the girl kicks Hina out too. So then Hina just starts wandering off. In that time, the guy, he ends up like, yes, I'm back single again. I get to do what I want. And then he goes to a bar with like some of his friends, and they're like, oh, where's Hina? And he's like, nah, I kicked her out. And they're like, what? You kicked your daughter out? And like he told him that was her daughter to like explain why all of a sudden this girl shows up. So then they like shame him and like kick him out of all the places that he likes to go. So then he goes and starts searching for Hina and brings her back in. Um, After that, future person number 3 shows up, and 3 and 4. It's basically Hina's previous caretaker, and she's like, I'm here to monitor what she's doing now, because when she was back there, she would destroy stuff. We couldn't get her to follow orders, and she was just like basically a natural disaster on just walking around. And she ends up finding her, and ends up tailing her and like writing down notes, and it's like, does she still kill animals? And then she like walks up to a cat and she's like, ah, kitty, and like pets it and walks past it. And she's like, and she's like, what? That's not characteristic. So no. And then she goes and somebody bumps into her and she's like, ah, she's gonna slaughter them. And she's like, does she like fight people still? And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. And then walks on. And she's like, no. And she's going down this list and like checking no. And the last thing that it says, if you check everything on this list, no, you got to take her back to the other time. And then she's like, oh crap. So she confronts her, says that I gotta go, and she's like, so where's your little orb thing that turns into the little egg? And she's like, oh, I lost that a long time ago. And she's like, how are we gonna go back now? She's like, I don't know. So he's like, okay, cool. So she calls for the fourth girl from the future. I don't know. And for some reason they get the wrong coordinates, and then she ends up trapped on some deserted island. And
oh my!
She ends up spending months there, and like slowly starts going crazy. And then she carves like these two little tree trunks into like her friends. And like one has a blonde wig, which is the homeless girl, and one has a blue wig, which is Hina. And then she like starts talking to them and just like surviving on the island.
Wilson.
It's basically two Wilsons, and then she basically does everything but build a raft. And
see,
it's like a whole episode just dedicated to her.
Cringy head smack moments in this already. I haven't even watched it.
Yeah, so it's like you spend this whole episode just watch this girl like just suffer on this island. You feel terrible for her, and they're like, okay, that's her episode, let's go back to Hina. And you're like, well, okay, I guess she's just there forever because she's stuck on the island and she doesn't know where she is because she's not from here. So that's the end of her storyline. See her never again. So then goes back to the blonde girl. I don't remember her name. And people crack down on the homeless situation that's going on in the park. And basically the police get involved, and basically all the homeless people get kicked out and sent to other places, and kind of like they all just disperse. Well, the blonde girl, she's like, I'm not from here. The only person I know is Hina and that guy she was with, and I'm not going back to Hina. And so she's like, we should fight for the park. And the homeless guys are kind of like, no, we've been here long enough. And like you can tell that they've been moving from one location to the next, and like this is the one location where it's like finally there's like 15 homeless people all together, and they like build these shelters and stuff like in the forest that's not like out of the way, but still people complain about it. So they're like, fine, we just need to go, and they all disperse again. And what they ended up doing is setting it up so where somebody takes the blonde girl in, and it's this older couple who owns a restaurant, and they start teaching her like how to actually be a productive member of society. And she still has her homeless ways, and she like one always wants to pay stuff. Like if somebody does something for you, you repay them back with a favor, or you give them something back, which is a very good thing that she was taught by by some of the homeless people, which they are very proud of. But then they also like try to break her out of like saving cans and all that kind of stuff, because they're like, we own a restaurant, this is how we make money, and all that kind of stuff. And they basically turn her into like the most adorable character you've ever seen. They go, what was it? Something happens with Hina. She disappears for some reason. I can't remember why. But in her, what was it? Oh yeah, so because she knows the main Yakuza guy, the parents, they go out to a hot spring.
Oh, of course, hot spring episode.
Well, no, it's not. Like you don't go with them. It's just
okay.
they go. I think she's like, they want some alone time or something. I'm like, I don't need to know all of that. I just need to know that they're going on vacation. So they went on vacation, and she ends up staying with the main Yakuza guy. And he's seen her a couple times, and he knows like how much of a nice girl she is and all that kind of stuff. And he's like jealous. He's like, how come I ended up with Hina, and those restaurant people ended up with this like perfect little girl? And he starts like doing stuff like taking care of her, like he takes care of Hina, and then she's like, no, I'll help too. She's like, oh. And like he makes dinner, and she's like, okay, I'll wash the dishes and all that kind of stuff. And he's like he's like, oh my god, why? So it's like an episode of them two like bonding and everything. And then they come back, the older couple come back from their vacation, and then she ends up going back with them. And then Hina comes back, and then it kind of just ends. And I'm like, when I came back to finish the show up, it was I remember. Yeah, before it ends, you end up going to China for some reason. And
let's go to China.
You end up seeing one of the people that Hina had come across when she was homeless. She ended up finding this rock band, and they like use her levitating powers to like put on a performance where I think they were called like the Angels. So like at the end of the song, he'd be like, la, and like fly into the sky like an angel, and like they were getting really popular as a street performer because of that fact. And then Hina like got tired of it and wanted to go home, and so they had to come up with something else. So he's been like going around to different places trying to find either that same thing or like some kind of performance art to like keep that whole angel thing going. And he ends up in China for some reason, probably because it's close to Japan. And he ends up seeing this demonstration of this superpower martial arts dojo. It's probably not dojo because it's Chinese, but yeah. And this one girl, she has like all these giant pots like held together, and then they're like, and watch as she demonstrates the power that she definitely learns with us. It's not magic, and then you can join our school. And then she like puts her hand out and just shatters all the glasses by using her telekinesis. And he's like, oh, it's that same thing that I saw in Japan. So he ends up talking to her, and then the people who are taking care of her from the I'm gonna call it a dojo. The people that are taking her from the dojo find out that like someone else is talking to her, and that like they may explain stuff to her to get her to like leave. And they're like, we forbid you, and of course she like defies it and all that kind of stuff. And when he's talking to her, he's trying to convince her, like he's like, I've been doing this and this and that, and I think you can help me out with this. And she's like, nah, I'm not really interested. And he's like, God, if I could only find something that helped me out like Hina did. And then she's like, Hina? And then and then they end up leaving. Like, she basically goes back to tell them that she's leaving, and they're like, come up, and they're like, no, you can't leave until you pass this one trial. And it's like, you know that in martial arts there's like these, it's like a totem pole with like arms sticking out, and it's like you do they have this super crazy one that she has to beat, and of course she beats it because she has telekinesis. And she passes that trial, and then gets like approval to leave. And then they start heading towards Japan. And then so there may be one more episode, or there may be I don't know. All I know is like right now it just ended because like they did the whole they did that whole outro where they like kept playing the show throughout the outro, and then it just stopped. And I'm like, is that it? Is she gonna meet with her and give her little red ball thing and then leave and go back to her own time? I'm like, what's gonna happen with the blonde girl? She's like having a really good time in this time area. I'm like, did she get kicked out? I don't remember why she was there. And I'm like, I don't know. So I'm like, I'm kind of weird at the end of the series, but it was a very interesting, fun ride so far.
What What is with this series and or like this season and endings? It's like every single one of them we've talked about, except for My Hero, is like going up to the lead in all the way up to it was great. Then the ending just dropped it, and we're just sitting there going, "What the hell?"
So, yeah, this is a fun ride, and I don't know if it ended yet or not. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's a very interesting, very amusing show. It had me laughing a lot, and I don't know if they made a second one. I'd watch it. It was interesting enough. But yeah, let me check. Let me see.
I think I saw 12 episodes on Crunchyroll.
Oops. Yeah, it stopped at 12, but I'm checking. Oh yeah, it's over. I was like, yeah, she was heading back to Japan, and
then they ended.
Yeah, so don't
They
know.
they never like gave closure to any of the other people.
Nah.
That one girl is still stuck on that island, right?
Well, no, she was the one that was ended up. She basically she built a raft and ended up in China, and then the dojo found her, and then she ended up being like the face of the company, and then the guy took her, and then they're heading back to Japan on the plane.
So. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So it's like they kind of button some stuff up. They're like, oh, everybody's gonna be together. Okay, it's good enough. Bye.
they'll be around, you know.
So that's it for that one. So the next show we're gonna be talking about is Megalobox. Whoo, yeah, boy!
I meant to pick this one up. I had it even on my queue, but I never went to it.
I loved this show until
it always looked fun.
The ending was, I guess, typical. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like awesome. It was like the typical ending of a sports anime. This anime is about good.
I was about to say, so instead of maybe this is the the season of typical endings. Of just anime endings, essentially.
Yeah, because like anime have like I think they have a reputation of ending badly.
Mm-hmm. The open for interpretation. Yeah. We're not gonna tell you everything.
Yeah, we're not gonna button it up.
Yeah, exactly. So,
unbuttoned endings. But this one actually it had some closure, but it was kind of like the stereotypical ending of a sports anime. So it wasn't like anything like super awesome. Like the show. Thinking about it overall, it's basically the straight up underdog story. It's about megaloboxing, which is I guess machine aided boxing. Like you get these kind of power packs on your shoulders, and it helps you punch harder. And it's basically about the story of this guy who lives outside of a city, and inside the city there's these sanctioned official boxing matches where there's championships and stuff like that. And the main guy, he is an underdog. He's an underdog who's a very talented fighter, and he is basically just boxing to earn a living. This one coach ends up seeing him and picking him up, but that coach has a bunch of debt. So what he ends up doing, instead of like teaching him how to fight, and they both go on to win a bunch of tournaments, they basically teach him how to fight like to look like he can fight decently well, and then throw a bunch of matches, because they end up teaming with people who bet against them. So then they make the match look good and then fail, and then end up getting some of the payout. And they've been doing that for a long time, until the biggest Megalobox tournament actually shows up, where there's like a grand prize of a whole bunch of money. Normally they wouldn't care about that, but the main boxer ends up coming across the champion, and they kind of get into a little thing, and they want to actually fight each other. And the champion is like, I don't fight on the streets, I fight in the ring. So if you want to fight me in my ring. Work your way up to me. And that's what he ends up doing. They end up forging an ID, and they end up going through a bunch of different matches. Each match more incredible than the next, and you end up finding a lot of well-developed characters, whether they're characters that are alongside your main character or characters that are people who are related to some of the main characters, but end up being one of the people you have to fight against. And it ends up being a really, really cool story with really, really cool with a really, really cool soundtrack. They kind of go like Samurai Champloo, where all of the music in the soundtrack is hip hop, but I prefer the music in Samurai Champloo over this music, but it is a unique style of music that actually goes well with the show 99% of the time. Gotcha. The times that I don't really like when it goes with it is if the character starts singing the words of the song. So there's like this little kid, and he's off by himself because something made him upset, and he's kind of like working out in his head. And then the song goes into this like little rap sequence, and then the kid's kind of like, he just starts rapping along with the song, and I'm like, wait a minute, are you listening to it, or are we listening to it, or are we all listening? Stop singing the song. So just stop. Yeah, so other than this gorgeous animation of this incredible underdog story with a very well done soundtrack, there are tiny bits and pieces of this, like just like very, very few, like maybe one or two things that pull me out of it. Otherwise, it is a great show. I'm not really into boxing shows. I'm curious about a lot of sports shows, which is why I always start them. Very few I finish, but this one was amazing, and I had to finish it. So, Megalobox, Rock'em Sock'em Robots, people. But yeah, it is very. I loved it. Because of this one, I may end up getting into the next Ashita no Joe if they make another one, and definitely if they make it stylized like this one was.
Gotcha.
So that's it for that one. The next show we're gonna be talking about is Persona 5, the animation.
Yes, Persona 5. I've always been a fan of the video game series, even though I've only ever played 3 and part of 4, but I've never played 5. Something about this series really, in general, like in the video game series itself, has always caught my attention because it's an RPG that's based upon some very interesting like monsters and characters. Like they pull monsters from like the Persona series in general will pull monsters from literally everywhere, from the mythos of Europe, Asia, United States. I mean, they even pulled gods and stuff from them before as a literal playable characters. And I'm like, that is just cool. But at the same time, there's always an undertone of socializing and being able to. You have to create these bonds with characters, and the more bonds you create, the more power you can gain. So there has to be some sort of balance that you have to do. You can't just focus completely on the fighting. You have to actually be sociable, go out, do things. And I think that's really cool the way they do that. And from watching Persona 5, the animation, I think they really try to bring that through. Mm-hmm. So the main story is basically about a kid who is in high school, and he kind of got a bad rap. He did something against someone else who deserved it, but because of their authority and where they were at, it put him in a bad light. Mm-hmm. So he gets sent off, and I don't think he's a family relation, but somebody that the family knows is taking him in. Mm-hmm. Away from where all of this occurred. But because of that, everyone kind of generally knows, or at least perceives him as being kind of a troublemaker. Mm-hmm. So he kind of has this reputation around him. So the very first thing, though, is that there is a volleyball coach who you kind of get this impression is doing things he shouldn't be doing.
Mm-hmm.
is kind of abusing his power and abusing the kids as well.
Because of
And
the Olympian, right?
yeah, is the Olympian. So he already has like people already highly regard him. So if anyone were to ever say anything negatively about him, people wouldn't believe what's being said, kind of thing. So he did a lot and abused a lot, and even at one point, one of the kids almost tried to commit suicide because of it,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which was very, fair warning as far as the show goes. It's not a light, happy show. It is kind of dark in its own way. But as with all the ones I've seen so far, and even all the games, you always meet this caretaker or curator, I guess you could say,
Mm-hmm.
who he wants to bring out the power within you in order to change the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
So what ends up happening is he does to the main character, and along the way, he makes friends with some another, or not in the actual picture. You only see the main character in the actual picture there, but there's two other people he makes friends with. One's a girl, another one's another guy, and each one of them have their own personal problems. But when they begin to accept things and be able to utilize things and learn things on their own, the persona that is within inside them that has been buried is able to come out, and they kind of gain power from that. What they wanted to do and what they end up doing is they end up talking, or they end up going into the parallel world that they can do. And the reason they do that is because apparently anyone who has twisted thoughts or is in some way, the way they view themselves in real life is not the way that ends up happening, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they like their desires, their emotions are very twisted. So like with the Olympian and at the school, when you went to the alternate reality, it changed from being a school to being a castle, because that's how he viewed his life in the school. He was king. He controlled everything. No one disobeyed his words because he was king. So the school turned into a castle, and some of the monsters that were populating it turned into guards for him. And eventually they end up overcoming him and defeating him. And because they defeated him and took away his treasure that he was coveting, that was twisting his desires and his thoughts, he ends up in the real world when they come back having to change your heart and then professing all the things that he did to all the people. So, and he gets taken off to jail or whatever. So that's kind of where this kind of goes to, is they're going around, they're finding people who are objectionable, morally twisted and messed up and whatnot, and are
Mm-hmm.
causing harm to either themselves or to others. And they're going into the alternate reality and defeating them and stealing away their treasure. So that way, in the real world, they'll have a change of heart and
Okay.
actually decide to do good and whatnot. Now, in between all this, you find,
Oh.
the main character is creating more bonds. He's, talking with people, communicating. He has now sort of a friendly relationship with one of his teachers, who originally thought he was a problem child, but because he helped out one of his friends with the help of the teacher, they kind of see themselves in a different light. It's changing hearts, changing perspectives, but at the same time, they're going deeper and deeper into this world. And one of the characters that's with them is actually a cat who, in the alternate reality, is probably like maybe 2.5, 3 feet tall, and actually kind of walks around like a human, except it looks like he has like a cat get up mask kind of thing, where he's a cat burglar or kind of thing. And then in the real world, he actually just turns into a cat.
Hmm.
And then, but see, the people who actually go into the alternate world can still communicate with him and actually talk with him like an actual person, even in the real world, which is kind of interesting. But
So,
there's story with him because apparently just recently I found out he believes he's lost some of his memories and that the form that he has is not his true form, and he's trying to go deeper into this alternate world in hopes of finding the answers because that's where he first originally woke up.
okay.
That's as far as his memories go. So uh, in the meantime, at one point in the very beginning of the series, the main character was captured, and basically all the story that we're getting up to this point, he's relaying to somebody after he'd already been in a police holding cell, and is now divulging all of this to this one lady who came up. I guess is more of a lawyer or attorney or kind of thing, and trying to get the whole story about what has happened up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's a kid detective that's trying now that they've already in episode 11 that I've gone out to. They've already committed 2 times of, I guess you could say, a quote unquote heist where they were stealing the treasure and defeating the person and had them have a change of heart. So now there's this famous kid detective who's now trying to uncover who they are.
Ah.
Um, so I'm guessing that ends up playing a role later on where they might end up coming in contact with each other. Um, but again, it's monsters, villains, kind of a lighthearted story with undertones of dark in it, and then creating these connections, these bonds, and honestly, just kind of an action kind of anime. So it's not anything amazing, but it's not bad, I would say.
Okay. Cool. Whenever you were talking about that the person had to um be social and um do other things like that, it reminded me of the game because like the game you had to like go to school and you had to do other stuff along with the other things that you were
Well,
doing.
see, they're saying like in this they have to maintain good grades because if they don't maintain good grades, it because people already suspect that the Phantom Thieves is what they're calling themselves. People already suspect that the Phantom Thieves are students in the school.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to maintain an air of basically the persona where no one suspects them, they have to maintain good grades. They have to be kind of sociable, um,
Uh,
and in order to gain money, so that way they can gain equipment in order to do the things that they do in the ultimate world.
uh-huh.
Um, and this kind of plays into the game as well. They have, they sell off the treasures that they end up getting, so that way they can gain money to be able to pay for that. But also the main character, and it's kind of weird, he's actually taking medical studies in order to actually gain money so that way he can pay for items and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. Kind of like you would in the game. You're having to pay for items, you're getting money outside and whatnot, and then gaining things in and while you're doing the fighting and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's again, it's very. I feel like they want to do more with it, but they don't want to overload it because if they do, those who have never played any of the games previously will become lost.
Okay.
So they're definitely holding back, and they'll show you a little bit, and then they'll do a little bit of explanation, and then they'll go on to something else and show you a little bit of this, and then they'll do a little bit of explanation, and it just kind of keeps rolling like that. And I get it. It's because if you haven't played the games, you'll be kind of like, what? Why are we doing this? What's going on? Why is this happening? Where did they get this from? Why are they doing this?
Mm-hmm.
But for those of us who have played the games, we kind of look at it and go, oh yeah, no, I get that. Oh, I remember that guy. Yep, nope, he's the yep, yep. And then they combine. Oh yeah, and they evolved. Okay, yep, nope, got it. You know, because the main character, I mean, in any of the games, because like all the other side characters always had one persona,
Mm-hmm.
but the main character was one of those that could use multiple personas.
Okay.
And that was one of the things that happened was during a battle, his persona that he had wasn't working right. So he had previously gotten one of the other, I believe it was a pixie, to join his team as another persona. So since his main one wasn't working and wasn't being able to do the things he needed it to do to defeat the enemy, the dude that starts this whole thing, a long-nosed dude who always has the cards that he's playing with or whatever when he talks to the main character, he kind of steps in mentally and goes, okay, let's do this. And then he takes both those personas and combines them into a different persona altogether, which is something you do in the game. But for those who didn't understand that or know that, they might have looked at that and went, wait, how did that happen? Where did we get here? Because it created a whole new persona for him. And then he was able to use that persona to defeat the enemy he had at that time.
Okay.
So, and then later on, you see him like there was one point where you see him finishing up a battle, and one of the monsters says, "I will join you," and then he kind of moves into him, kind of thing. So he joined him as another persona. So that's another thing he could actually then use as material to combine into another persona. And again, it's more of game logic as far as that goes than anime logic, but that's what happens when you have an anime that's based upon a game.
Okay, so when you say join, you mean they'll join like the party, and then if you choose, you can choose multiple party members to combine.
Correct.
But you can't combine a party member and something that's not a party member, or can you?
Correct. If they haven't joined your party, they're not actually part of your persona list, so then you can't use them as material to combine into another persona. Only ones that have joined your party.
Once they can combine, can you uncombine them?
Nope.
Ooh, okay, cool.
It is then, that is the way it is, though I know in the game, the guy that does that for you keeps a compendium of all the personas, and you can resummon a persona that has been previously used as material.
Okay.
But it's kind of costly to do that, so.
Yeah.
But again, that's if you want. So, but again, it's interesting, and I've always wanted to watch. I've always started one of these Persona animes, but never finished them.
Mm-hmm.
So going through this one, I'm now 11 episodes in. I can definitely see where I liked the way that they handle that and the interactions and everything like that. But again, if you're not aware of the games or you've never played any of the games, it might come off to you as a little bit strange, even for anime, because it's not quite the same as what you would expect.
Okay.
So, but you've actually played some of the games, or at least you know of the games. So
yeah, some of these things
that you'll see here during this anime, you'll be like, oh, absolutely, totally get that. Yeah, no, absolutely. But for someone who's just an anime person who watches that, they might get a little bit lost. So,
cool.
This is definitely what I would say would be a fan-oriented anime.
Okay.
If you're not a fan of the series, you're just not going to have a good time.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. My trend is still, I've only seen the first episode.
Yeah.
So, let's see. The next show we're going to be talking about is Sword Art Online, Gun Gale Online.
This was definitely a meh one for me. It wasn't bad. We're not talking like taboo tattoo territory here. But it was meh.
So, what did you think about the second Sword Art Online 2?
I thought it was good. I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I think it had a great deal of okay, so starting this off, the first Sword Art Online, the first Sword Art Online that came out was really good. And I think it was really good because it was kind of the first of its kind in that regards.
Mm-hmm.
And it had it snagged you in, because if you're a gamer, you'll understand it, and you see a lot of that, and you're like, got it. There's a lot of things that they do And then it heightened it by saying, if you die in the game, you die in real life. And it's like, wow, that's like, if you're a gamer in that regard, especially an RPG or an MMORPG kind of thing, you
Mm-hmm.
ever play those, you get involved, you get connected, you get like your that's your character, that's who you are.
Yeah.
So when they die in the game, you're like, yo, you feel, even though it's like, okay, I can respawn, whatever, but you get frustrated with it, you get aggravated, you feel something for that. And that's why I think like something like Sword Art, especially in the beginning, had that hook. It had that where it drew people in for that.
Mm-hmm.
Season two, when it came out, I think had its place because we're still with those same characters.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's a different game, different genre that they're in, and there's a reason for that, it's those same characters. And you grew connected to those characters over time because of that, which is great. But it caused, I think that was the main draw for the second season.
Mm-hmm.
And the storyline for it was deep. The main, excluding, um, and I can't remember his name from the
Kirito.
first, Kirito. Excluding Kirito, the other girl that was in there that was kind of the main focus, she had a very dark past. It was a part of where she, as a kid, got had involved in a bank robbery where she was trying to take cover. Something happened with the guy who was doing the robbery. Gun came close to her. Someone was about to get hurt, and she picked up the gun and shot, and ended up killing the guy. But it was a lasting impression with her, and it traumatized her to the point where she she couldn't pick up a gun, or shouldn't even see a gun in real life without having like a panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
And even if she knew it was a fake gun, just seeing a gun gave her a panic attack. So that's why she went into GGO for Gun Gale, because it there was a gun. She wanted to have to where she could get herself accustomed to it. You know, she's like, okay, I know this is a game. It's not real life, but I'm holding a gun, and I'm not gonna freak out about it. And it took a while, but eventually she got to that point. She was good. Kirito had a hand in that and helped her along. Um, and that was the first part of that second season. And then the second season, I think the first part had the biggest impact, and then the second part I enjoyed, but I can see where people would have it as a problem simply because it it went from having the Gun Gale online from the first half to then the second half being the what happened in the second half of the first series, that fairy world that they were in, which I still enjoyed, just because they were still doing things. And I'm like, this is a fantasy setting. I'm cool with that. Absolutely.
What
Still
was the
hanging
name
around
of
here.
that game?
I want to say it was like Algorithm Online or something like that, or I started with an A, I want to say.
Hmm.
But anyways, it was a fantasy setting. I still enjoyed it. I still thought it was cool. It didn't have nearly as deep of a storyline
Hmm.
as the rest of it did, but I still enjoyed it. Now, here we are, Sword Art Online Alternative, Gun Gale Online. Storyline, not so deep. So you have this main character, this girl. Um, what you see there in the picture, the pink girl, is her actual persona in the game. Now, see, whereas, okay, you had Kirito, who joined in the game, and who joined in the original Sword Art Online, and then got trapped in it, and it ended up defeating the person in it. And then he went back into the fantasy realm to save his girlfriend, but also because he had an issue with being in the VR game. that was his problem. It's like he was traumatized from that, his experience, because when last time he went into a VR game, it was life or death
Yeah.
for him. That's major, And then in season 2, you have this other girl who goes into Gun Gale Online because she's trying to get over her phobia and her fear and her panic attack of guns. So that's a very good hit, right? So here we are, Len, as that's her name in the game. She joins this game not for. She has a complex because of her height. That's literally it. She wants to join a game because she has a complex about her height, and she wants to join a game where she's actually small and cute because she doesn't feel like she is in real life. She's too tall, she's not cute, but she likes cute and she wants to be, so she joins this game.
Okay.
That's her whole thing. I'm like, okay. And I think it's actually one of her friends who, in that picture, the blonde hair with the hat is one of the ones.
Okay, yeah.
That's her friend, and that's her persona in the game. But I don't know. She ends up meeting up with the girl in the blue and the other guy. The first time she meets the girl in the blue, and they form a pair simply because they found out they're both girls in the game, and it's literally why they joined a pair. She wanted her outfit to be cute, which is why she made it all pink. And then she ends up finding a gun that she likes, which is the P90 that you see there, and she turns it pink as well. Peachan, exactly. I'm like, all right, sure. But then she ends up finding out, like, during the game, she's just playing it, nothing major or whatever. She ends up finding during the game that because she is all in pink, she goes to the desert area a lot in the game, and because of her garb, she actually blends in when there's a sandstorm. Simply because it's a lightish color and it's hard for people to see. And she's also very fast. When she was building her character and killing things, she ends up leveling up her dexterity to the max. So she is like super fast. When she's in an all-out run, you literally see a cloud of dust coming from behind her. That's how fast she's going. And she ends up coming across the other girl, and they end up forming a bond. And then she and the black-haired girl, which is called Pito, she ends up convincing her to go and do the what do they call it? The squad jam, which is what Kirito did in the second season. And she convinces her to do it with M, which is the dude in the center of all that, who is a friend of hers, she says. She just can't join it because she had something else going on at that time. So M and her are having fun. They're doing what they're doing. And then at one point, M gets a message from Pito. And then next thing you know, M draws a gun on Len, even though they're on the same team. Yeah, draws a gun and is like about to fire. Len ends up, because of her dexterity, disarming him, pointing the gun at him, and then it was like, what is it that you read? What is it that you read on that note from Pito that ended up causing you to do this? And that's when you find out that Pito has kind of Pito wishes that she was part of the original Sword Art when the game was a death game, essentially, and is actually very disappointed that she wasn't, and is now trying to find a death game, essentially, in order to substantiate that. And M and Len end up finishing out the squad jam at first place, which she says M says that if he doesn't hit first place, Pito is going to kill him, literally kill him. And when they finish later on, she's like, okay, that's done. We finished first place. You're fine. Then when the second one starts to come up, M finds her in real life and says, if Pito is going to be joining this next one, if you don't join and kill her, or if she ends up getting first place, she is going to kill herself. And that then in turn has her joining up into the second one, even though she didn't want to. So, and then her partner, since M was going to be joining Pito, her partner ends up being the blonde-haired girl with the hat, since she needed at least 2 people in order to join the squad jam. Mm-hmm. Which was fun, because then her friend, who's also very experienced at gaming, then decides her choice of weapon will be M basically gives her a bunch of in-game money because she's just starting off the character, and she ends up getting 2 grenade launchers. She dual wields grenade launchers. Yeah, which is ridiculous.
I was like, that sounds fun.
Yeah, dual wielding grenade launchers, which is ridiculous. But yeah, then they end up forming up a team, and then is when the first chance you actually get to see, because then Pito's in the second squad jam, and then you actually see how vicious she is, because people actually know Pito. She has a reputation. So when she entered the squad jam, apparently, there's squads up to 6 people, including the leader. Apparently, 6 of those teams decided to join forces and send their guys out after her.
Oh, because they found out that she was like, we need to team up, guys.
We need to team up and finish her out. She is that. We need to finish this. And she slaughters them. Slaughters them. Like, they had no chance whatsoever. And to see how sadistic she was, there was 2 guys from different teams. One had his basically legs blown off, and the other one was holding on to him before he could get fall into a raging river or whatever, and would have died from that. And there she is, leaning up against a rock next to him with a pistol in hand. And M walks up to her and goes, "Aren't you going to finish him off?" He goes, "Well, he hasn't drawn his gun. I don't want to shoot him until he draws his gun." And he starts saying things about her, and then she starts slowly. She starts from like the bottom up and starts shooting like from his legs, and keeps going up, and seeing how long it's going to take for he's going to drop the other dude into the river and draw his own pistol. And then when he doesn't, and M convinces her to leave, as they're leaving, she casually tosses a grenade back behind her and blows them both up. I'm like,
well.
wow, holy crap. And then, things happen. A lot of things happen. And Len ends up meeting Pito in real life, and there's a big to-do about that. Mm-hmm. But I won't spoil the surprise that comes from that. But okay. Again, at the end, it was just kind of like, you see both Len and Pito at the end of it, back in GGO, and they're just playing away. Pito looks over at Len and goes, "We need to meet in real life again." She's like, "No, I'm not having meet you in real life again," because some things happen with that. And he's like, "No, not happening." She's like, "What? I can come over to your house." She's like, "No, you're not coming over to my house. Stop it." And then, I guess one of their booby traps where they were at, and it goes off, and then both of them jump up and went, they fell for it. And then they go running off, and that's the end of it. And I'm like, really? Really? I don't know. The action is great. The action is great. Characters are kind of meh, and then the storyline was also kind of meh. I mean, that's
Okay.
the best I could say for it, honestly.
Okay.
And the only reason I'm basing that off of that is because of what the previous two iterations gave you.
Mm-hmm.
There was a reason why, and a very good reason why Kirito and Shion, I think was the name from the second season,
Ah, Shion,
went
yeah.
went into the games that they did.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was purpose in between that. There was reason. And this one, I don't see it. You know, I think for Len, it was just a matter of just killing time. Honestly, it was just a fun thing, which I get. It's gaming, sure, why not? But when you have like such a pointed reason, and the other two now to only have kind of it's just a game kind of thing, feels just wrong almost.
Okay.
You're like, it's not nearly as it doesn't draw you in nearly as hard,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So, and then having
Okay.
the main person who threatened to kill themselves if they didn't die from Len's hand, or if they didn't, if they hit first place and no one was able to kill them at all, made it seem kind of just. And then next thing you know, in the very end, they're back in GGO, and she's just telling her, "Hey, don't kill yourself." He's like, "No, I'm not. I'm not." And I'm like, "Really? Really? I don't. No, no."
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it just seemed like it was kind of forced together. I
Mm-hmm.
appreciated going back into GGO because I kind of liked that whole prospect and the way things were handled. I thought it was still kind of cool. I think I like. It's probably just me, but I mean, I liked Sword Art Online. I liked GGO. I liked the fantasy realm they're in. But I mean, I'd even like for Log Horizon, even though that was another game. I like
Mm-hmm.
these animes that are based upon game worlds like that. I like them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not I'm not like a diehard, but I'm still like I could watch them and I'd still be fine. So I don't know if that's just from my personal perspective, but either way, again, action superb, excellent. Firefights were gritty. They felt the right way. Um, very in depth, and like you see the bullet hit and smash into somebody's head, or sometimes you'd see heads fly, and you're like, damn, all right, that's deep, that's heavy, absolutely. But if I didn't have the previous two iterations to go off of, I would say this one's excellent. Since I
Okay.
have the two previous iterations to go off of, because the storyline I don't feel was entirely there like it was the other two, and the characters weren't necessarily as, I want to say, fleshed out and
Mm-hmm.
as deep as the previous ones were.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that it's lacking in that regards. So
Okay. So basically, if they would have taken the Sword Art Online name off of it, it would have been a decent show.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it'd been decent. It does say it's not decent already.
Mm-hmm.
It's a meh. It's not bad. It's not
Yeah.
great. It's good. It's
Well,
okay.
that's what I was asking, because it's like comparing, like, with the other two stories in mind, this one is like the lesser of them. But if it was on its own, would it still be decent, or would you rate it higher because you don't have anything?
A little higher.
Yeah.
I mean, I still wouldn't have rated it as high as the other ones previously, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Not even considering the two of them together.
Yeah.
But that's just because I've watched so much. I at least have some basis of good characterization development and good storyline. And
Yeah.
you know me as far as that goes.
Yeah.
I know you always like into the looks of things.
Yeah.
That's your high point, but that's because that's stuff that you studied and did stuff with. For me, story is where it's at. You give me a good story, I don't
Mm-hmm.
even care if the action's not there, and I'll only marginally care if the characterization is there or not, but the story has to be there. And the story, I don't feel like they had it completely fleshed out like they should have.
Okay.
So,
Cool. well, as the trend goes, I'm only one episode in. Um, I feel least connected to the Gun Gale Online ones because I'm not into first person shooters and stuff like that. Um, I am as far as fantasy anime go, that's also my weak genre. But as far as fantasy games, like fantasy games like RPGs, like real time action RPGs, where it's like no menus, like you just run around and hit stuff. That's the kind that I like, and that's why I was really drawn to Sword Art Online.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I feel like I would be in the same position where I would rate this one lower because the Sword Art Online name is attached, and what I like from that name doesn't look like it's in this series. So I feel like it shouldn't even have that title. But
Yeah, and honestly, I was hoping, even if it was just a cameo, I was like, put Kirito in there.
yeah,
Give him a can. Have him walking by while they're at a bar or something like that. You're like,
yeah,
oh, Kirito, hell yeah, he's there.
10 out of 10.
Cool. But they didn't do
um,
that. There was
yeah.
no like little cameo or anything. The only reference they ever gave to him was the fact that Pito ended up using an energy sword, which is the same one Kirito used.
Okay.
That's the only reference. She used it, killed a bunch of people, and then as like a side thing, they're like, no one's ever used one of those except for the very first squad jam that ended up happening, or Battle of Bullets that ended up happening, where one guy came in and used it and massacred everyone he came across. And you're like, yep, that was Kirito.
Yeah.
But they never even said his name. And I'm like,
Yeah.
come on. If he's famous enough for you to reference that, you should have at least said his name, made a little bit more effort into that. And the fact that you have the Sword Art Online name there, and yet you didn't even give him even a cameo, just feels wrong.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, as far as this franchise is concerned, I was looking at the rest of the year since I have time now, and I think there's another Sword Art Online in the fall.
Okay.
Like a fantasy one. So I am. If it's a fantasy one, I will be there. I'm gonna rewatch the first one, and that's it. And then I'm gonna watch. And then I'm gonna watch that one. But oh, and then maybe that movie. Because I wanted to watch that because they released it in the theaters, but I never got around to it. I think it was 2017, and I was a bad
Busy.
Yeah. So looking forward to that. The last show that we're gonna be talking about is Uma Musume Pretty Derby.
Yeah, I saw your tweet on that one. It sounded like it sounded well, and I read some other people's talking about this too. It kind of sounded like it kind of had just like all the other ones, stereotypical meh anime ending.
So it actually had a very, very good ending.
Oh, okay.
And then they're like, "Oh, let's do a special episode." And in that episode, it was kind of like all bets are off. It was like the OVA where they're like, "Oh, we'll just go to just as an example, we'll just go to a beach for no reason at all, just because anime has episodes with beaches. Even though it doesn't tie into the story, there's no reason why the characters will be at a beach, but just because we can, we're gonna take all the characters and put them in a beach." Just like it's like that, like Outlaw Star, how they had that one hot spring episode that really didn't make sense, and like even in the broadcast they took the episode out because it was a bit too raunchy for TV. It's kind of like that. It was like they're like, you love all of these characters, but they're all on different teams, and you normally can't have more than one character from more than two members of the same team racing, because that basically is like let's say you have seven athletes. You sprinkle them out throughout the different races, and you never have two of them in the same race because one's gonna win and one's gonna lose.
Mhm.
So
You can't have two fan favorites for
well,
wanting to win.
you can. It's just it'll damage their record.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things where it's like they're like, how about this? How about all bets are off? All of your favorite characters, basically all of the main characters, all in the same race, and you're like, ooh, this is gonna be awesome. And then the race just gets hyped up, and then the race starts, and you're like, everybody's in their normal position. This person's always out in front. This person's always in back. But I'm like, they're actually fast, or are they gonna catch up to the first person? And you're like, oh my god, they're catching up. And you're like, oh no, wait, everybody's catching up. You're like, holy crap, all these people are about the same talent, even though they've never been racing against each other. You're like, oh my god, this is gonna be crazy. And you're like, and it's down to the last turn. You're like, oh my god, the gap is getting even closer. You're like, holy crap. And then you're like, it's the home stretch. And you're like, who's gonna win? Everybody. Yay.
Oh, the biggest cop out ever. Everybody wins, nobody loses. Yay!
So that's the very last episode. That's the special episode. That's the episode where it's like, just kind of like
special in many ways.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? You know what? Let's put everybody in the race. It's like, you've never seen everybody race against each other. Let's put everybody in. That's not really part of the story, but yeah. So, other than that last episode where I was like, but what? So, I like this show way more than I thought I was going to. When we first started the show, we were like, why are they horses? Why can't this be just a track and field thing? And then you're like, okay, fine. And then you're like, why are they putting horseshoes on their shoes? That's redundant and dumb. And I still think it's dumb. But then we move on. Everything's kind of like weirdly horse themed. Like, they love carrots. And I'm like, okay, because horses like carrots. Okay, that makes sense.
Like cubes too. Is that come up? Sugar cubes too.
I think one character may have like mentioned, yeah, or no, probably not Sweet Tooth, but they just like, oh, would you like some tea? And then they pulled out sugar cubes, and you're like, because yeah, because of horses.
References. Good
so,
job.
Yeah. So then there's a few other things, like the character will be pacing weirdly, and I'm like, is that how horses pace? Because you're pacing weird. Maybe. So it's like all these little like kind of weird things that they put in the show, and you're like, why are they? Oh, because of horses. Okay, I get it. There are some really, really cool moments in the show. Basically, it's an underdog story. It is about the main girl that you see in the picture. She's out in the country, and she loves to run, and she moves to the big city to join this school that has this racing program, and she jumps in, and like on her team just happens to be one of the fastest top racers in the area, and like she learns from her, she idolizes her, all this kind of stuff. Everything's cool. One thing that's a good way to do this series is you hop around enough, because there's like 17 main characters. And you hop around just enough to where you're like, you're the one with the mask, you're the one with the red hair, you're the one with like 4 different colors in your hair, and it's like, I think you are one of the, like a senior, like you're one of the, not pro level, but like you're like one of the top racing, and then you're like one of the new upcoming, and then you're the rich girl, and then you're the crazy girl, and then you're, so it's like all these, everybody has their own little tropes. Then as far as the racing goes, overall is basically the same pattern. It's like, oh, they started the race. Okay, they're in their normal position. When are they going to make their move? Okay, they're making their move. Okay, the race is getting really, really close. Are they going to have this character fail, or are they going to have this character succeed? And that's the part that gets you all excited. Mm-hmm. I just really like the way that they conducted this show. Normally, what happens in a lot of the shows is you have the main character, and they're always the underdog. They start getting stronger and stronger, and then something happens, and they want to push themselves, and then they push themselves harder and harder and harder, and then they injure themselves. And like with an idol show like Love Live, that character injuring themselves disqualifies them from the final thing, and then the whole cast doesn't get to go. And it's like, whoa, that normally never happens. Usually they just like find a substitute or something like that, and like you can still compete in the last tournament and still win. This show, there's one character where she is very, very fast, and she's one of the favorites of the show. And there's a point where she kind of pushes herself, and she's basically making a mark here because she plans to race overseas, and she kind of want to leave like a lasting impression. And something else also happens to where she just feels super confident, like things are going right, everything's perfect, and that's always where they get you, because she is one of the people who actually, her position in the race is in front, dominating the whole thing the entire time. And the drama comes in for her is when people make their move and they almost catch her. They never catch her. But then this time she was like, I'm going to show you how fast I can really go. And she's running way in head, digs into the dirt, kicks off, boom, starts leaving everybody behind. And everybody's like, oh my God, this is the fastest she's ever run. Kicks into the dirt again, boom. And everybody's like, oh my God, she's setting records. Kicks into the dirt, fractures her ankle, and starts limping. And she's like, everybody's like, the whole show gets quiet. Everybody passes her. She's like stumbling. And then they kind of cut to her in the hospital. And you're like, what? What happened? Okay, so she's okay. Okay, everything's fine. And then they do a flashback. Because you're like, well, what? Like, who won? Like, is everybody, like, it was just a weird way to cut. And they show the person who won, and she's like disappointed that she won that way. And then they cut to like right when she injures herself, and the main girl like idolizes the one who injures themselves. And as soon as she sees that something's off, she immediately leaps into the race, and she's like, no! And I'm sitting there like, she's just gonna like slow down and stop the race. And she's like, no! And then it cuts to the coach, and he's like, if a horse falls at full speed, they can die. And I'm like, oh my God, go get her! And she's like, ah! She's all crying. And I'm like, save her! No, don't kill a character like this! Oh my God! And then she like catches her, and she's like, and I'm like, oh my God, man, what's up with this show? everything calms down, and like she spends basically like a year not racing, like going through uh like like physical what
Physical
is that?
therapy.
Yeah, physical therapy, and then she like tries to make a comeback and all that kind of stuff. But it's like I I got way more invested in this show than I thought I was going to, and it was actually like really really good.
Mm.
And then they're like, let's take on another episode and be all weird. And I'm like,
So your bulletin point for this is: if you watch this series, watch all the way until the very last episode, and when you get to that special episode, just skip it.
well, yeah, I would say skip it, but you would be interested because you're like, man, I wish there was a race where everybody was in, and then the show will end. And you're like, well, that kind of sucks. You're like, oh wait, there's one more episode, and then you're like, oh, my dream. It's called a dream race, and you're like, everybody's in the race, and then you'll get invested, and then you'll be like, but who won?
Everybody wins.
Yeah, because like they don't even like declare a winner. It's like normally whoever wins ends up being in like an idol performance afterwards because it's an idol show / sports show / horse racing show. It's weird, a weird combination, but I love it. But yeah, so whoever wins the race normally does like a performance afterwards, and it's like it goes down to the wire and like it does like a photo finish, but doesn't take the photo, and it kind of just fades to white, and then everybody's on stage dancing, and I'm like, is that how it's supposed to happen? Is it like, is it not even a real race? Because they did it before, like the main character, the one that injured themselves, was supposed to she was supposed to participate in that race, but because she hurt herself, you spent time with her, and that dream race happened behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So you never really saw it. But then the special episode, you actually get to see the race, and I'm like, is it actually just a dream race where it's like the what is it, like the Olympics, where you get like all the best basketball players from all the different teams and they all play together against another country, but it doesn't really do anything as far as like the actual teams
Mm-hmm.
and like where they rank. So I'm like, I guess it was like that. But you could have said who really won, because I'm pretty sure the red hair girl won, because she always wins unless she hurts herself. But yeah, I love this show way more than I thought I was going to. But yeah, that's all I have for that one. So that has been it for our final thoughts on the spring anime season of 2018. Next season has started today. I don't know if any shows are out. We can check that right now. But
usually what AniList has at least when the dates are going to come out.
Yeah, you can sort it by episode airing and then go to the bottom because actually you can look at the top to see if anything's coming out for the rest of the day, but then at the bottom it'll show what's already came out.
Mm.
So next airing episode, and then but
6 days, 8 days, 4 days, 3 days. I mean, they're really close. Oh, your Backstreet Girls comes out in 1 day. That's only 1 day away. For anyone who just happens to just be listening in, just to say something like Backstreet Girls, I'm sure they're like, wait, what? What is it that you're talking about? Don't worry about it. Just don't even worry about it.
But let's see, 5 days, 6 days, and then
yeah, I think the soonest one is going to be Backstreet Girls. Everything else kind of seems like at least a couple of days away.
Yeah, Hana Beto, the badminton anime, already came out.
Oh, okay.
And it's on Crunchyroll.
Ooh, Attack on Titan 3 is 20 days away.
Yeah, we got. For some reason, they're like, oh, probably because isn't it gonna be like 24?
Yeah.
Yeah, 26 episodes will be a full two seasons. So they're like taking 2 weeks. Before
Yeah, and see leftovers from this last season, Boku no Hero Academia. So I think they're gonna take a week off and then they come back.
Yeah, 20. Yeah, it's 25. Yep.
They're gonna take a week off and then they're gonna come back.
Yeah.
Persona's just gonna keep going.
Steins Gate is still going. I don't know. Watching that one kind of made me sad. I gotta. What I may do is I may wait like a while, and then that may be one of the shows that I
binge watch.
Yeah, but it's gonna be 2 cores worth of shows. That's gonna be hard. I don't know. I'll decide in a few weeks. But
didn't you want to watch Island?
Yes.
That's out.
Let's see. So
That is out.
So 2 shows I was interested in are already out.
Better hurry now.
Nice. But yeah, we will be back in, what does the schedule say? In 3 weeks on the 29th. Wait, or is that 4 weeks? I think this month is long. Yeah, we'll be back in 4 weeks with our initial thoughts on this next season that just started today.
Should be at least interesting. I mean, top two right away. Attack on Titan, Overlord 3.
Yeah.
Top
yeah, I
can't
wait to talk about the Overlord 3 because I'm actually caught up now. So.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
It was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can't wait to see where they start heading with that. So.
Alright.
Yeah. We'll be back in 4 months on the 29th. 4 weeks, Jesus. We'll be back in 4 weeks on the 29th.
4 months. That's a bit much.
Yeah, we'll be talking about our initial thoughts on the newest season. So, as always, this is Big D and Shade from Takayaki Gaming. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for hanging out in chat. Thanks for supporting the channel in any way you do. And we will see y'all next time. Bye.